The night was thick with an unnatural stillness. Deep in the heart of the Yucatan Peninsula, nestled within the vast jungles that had once been home to the ancient Maya, there was a lingering sense of something forgotten, something left behind, buried beneath the layers of time, a mystery wrapped in the silence of the long departed. The very soil of this land held secrets that, even today, scientists and historians still strive to fully understand. Among these secrets lay the Mayan calendar, an intricate system of timekeeping that stretches far beyond the boundaries of what we, in our modern world, have ever known or imagined. For centuries, the calendar was nothing more than an academic curiosity. Historians and archaeologists marveled at its precision, noting the sophisticated astronomical knowledge the Maya possessed. They calculated the movement of celestial bodies with incredible accuracy, far outpacing their contemporaries. Yet, there was always something deeper, something more profound about the Mayan calendar, something that tugged at the edges of ancient prophecies, whispered through the ruins of long-forgotten cities, and echoed through the minds of modern thinkers. And at the center of this enigma was the end date, the fateful year 2012. It was a date that captured the world's imagination. In the years leading up to it, an air of both dread and anticipation enveloped the planet. What could it possibly mean? Was it the end of the world? A cataclysmic event? A meteor crashing into Earth? Or perhaps some cosmic apocalypse that the Mayans had predicted thousands of years ago? People from all corners of the globe spoke of the prophecy, and as the calendar's end drew closer, the frenzy only heightened. Cultures all over the world, each with their own interpretation of what the Mayans might have foretold, began to prepare for something big, something that could change the world forever. The 2012 prophecy became more than just a passing fascination. It transformed into a cultural phenomenon, one that blended history, mythology, and science fiction into a combustible mix of fear and fascination. Movies, books, documentaries, and even survivalist movements rose up around the idea that the Maya, ancient and wise, had left behind a warning we, in our arrogance, had overlooked for centuries. The thought that an ancient civilization could hold knowledge so profound, so specific, and so relevant to our time was an intoxicating idea. But what if the message was not what it appeared to be? What if the Mayan calendar had something else in mind? Something that went far beyond the simple notion of an apocalyptic ending. To understand the true nature of the prophecy, we must first examine the calendar itself. Unlike the Gregorian calendar, which most of us are familiar with, the Mayan calendar was an intricate web of cycles that extended over vast periods of time. The Maya didn't just measure days, they measured epochs, ages, and eons. At its core was the long count calendar, which tracked the passage of time from a specific starting point, August 11th, 3114 BCE in the Gregorian calendar. It's not simply a way of counting days. It's a map of cosmic cycles, a system that spans back to the beginning of the Maya's understanding of time and extends into the distant future. The Maya believed in cyclical time, a view that each age was followed by another, and each cycle had its own significance, its own beginning and end. The end of one cycle was not a conclusion but a transition, a necessary part of the larger flow of cosmic events. But here's where things get fascinating. The calendar didn't just end. It reset. The Maya didn't see time as linear, as we do. Their view of time was not that of a simple, straight line leading from birth to death. It was more of a spiral, ever-turning, repeating but always evolving. This idea is key to understanding what the Mayans were really trying to tell us. As the calendar reached the end of the 13th Bactan, which corresponds to December 21st, 2012, it didn't signal the end of the world. Instead, it marked the conclusion of one cycle and the beginning of another, a new chapter in the Great Book of Time. The misunderstanding of this event, the end of the Mayan calendar, has its roots in how we perceive history. We see beginnings and endings as definitive events. We believe in the idea of a final conclusion, where one chapter closes and another starts. But for the Maya, this was never the case. Their understanding of time was far more fluid, more cyclical. To them, the date December 21st, 2012, was a moment of cosmic significance, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. It wasn't about death or destruction. It was about transformation, renewal, and the passage into something new. Perhaps, as we rush to find answers to our questions, we miss the true meaning behind the calendar. It wasn't a warning to fear the future. It was an invitation to embrace it. In the years leading up to 2012, the Mayan prophecy became a focal point for fearmongers, doomsday theorists, and spiritual seekers alike. Some believed the Maya had foretold the rise of catastrophic natural disasters: earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. Others believed that the alignment of the planets would cause a global shift in the magnetic fields, plunging the Earth into chaos. Some predicted alien invasions or the sudden, inexplicable collapse of human civilization. But amid the frenzy, one thing became clear: no one truly understood the calendar. The true significance of the Maya's message had been obscured by the veil of modern myth-making and sensationalism. Yet, beneath the noise, there were scholars, spiritual leaders, and curious minds who tried to separate fact from fiction. They pointed out that the Maya had always seen the end of a cycle as an opportunity for renewal. They saw the transition as a time to recalibrate, to reset, not as a final judgment. It was a time when humanity could reflect on its actions and reset its course. In fact, when we look back at the ancient ruins, pyramids, temples, and monuments, we see not the markers of impending doom, but the artifacts of a people who believed in something much grander than themselves: the eternal flow of time and humanity's place within it. As we dig deeper into the legacy of the Mayans and their calendar, we begin to uncover not just a civilization lost to time, but a philosophy of existence that transcends the boundaries of their age and continues to resonate with us today. Could their message have been about more than just the physical world around us? Could the Maya have been trying to awaken us to something deeper, something spiritual? As we approach the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next, we must ask ourselves, are we ready for the transformation that lies ahead, just as the Maya once predicted? The ancient civilization of the Maya was one of the most advanced societies the world has ever known, and their mastery over time, astronomy, and architecture was unparalleled. The Maya lived in what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, and their culture flourished between the 3rd and 9th century CE, creating an empire that spanned across vast territories, with cities rising and falling like the cyclical time they so deeply believed in. But what truly set them apart from other ancient cultures was their unrivaled understanding of the heavens. The Maya were not just stargazers. They were cosmic architects who saw the universe as a grand, interconnected system of cycles, both earthly and celestial. From the earliest days of their civilization, the Maya began to observe the night sky with an intensity that bordered on the mystical. They tracked the movements of the stars, planets, and the moon, observing the cycles of the planets like Venus, whose movement they saw as a powerful symbol of life and death, of creation and destruction. Their understanding of time wasn't based on arbitrary measurements, but on cosmic rhythms, the precise and predictable dance of the celestial bodies. In this cosmic dance, the Maya saw profound meaning. Time, they believed, wasn't simply a linear progression from one day to the next. It was cyclical, echoing the cycles of nature, the seasons, the cycles of life and death, the patterns of the sun and moon, the tides of the oceans. To the Maya, these cycles were sacred. They believed that the movements of the stars and planets influenced the lives of people on Earth. They viewed time as a living, breathing entity, a force that both guided and shaped humanity. The movements of the celestial bodies, they believed, were not just natural phenomena. They were a reflection of divine forces at work, a kind of cosmic clockwork that governed not only the heavens but the very fate of human beings. Every celestial event, the rising of a new star, the appearance of a comet, the alignment of planets, was seen as a sign, an omen that carried great significance. The Maya understood that these events were tied to the cycles of life, from birth to death, from the creation of the world to its eventual destruction and rebirth. This understanding of the cosmos was not just intellectual. It was deeply spiritual. The Maya believed that the gods and goddesses lived among the stars, and that their actions in the heavens were reflected in the actions of mortals on Earth. They saw their entire world as a sacred space, a place where the forces of nature and the divine intersected in an ongoing, dynamic relationship. And at the heart of this sacred understanding was their complex system of timekeeping. At the core of Maya timekeeping was the long count calendar, a system that tracked time in a way that no other culture had done before. Unlike the simple, linear Gregorian calendar that most of the world uses today, the long count calendar was designed to measure time on a much grander scale, incorporating vast cycles that stretched back to the beginning of the world itself. The calendar began in 3114 BCE, a date that the Maya believed marked the birth of the current age of the world. This was not a mere reckoning of days, but a comprehensive system of time that included epochs and eras, vast stretches of time that far surpassed the length of a human lifetime. The long count calendar was incredibly precise, and it was used by the Maya to record historical events, to plan rituals, and to align their sacred ceremonies with cosmic cycles. The Maya's ability to predict solar eclipses, track the movements of Venus, and understand the relationship between the Earth and the cosmos was extraordinary, and their timekeeping system was a key part of this knowledge. The calendar was not just a tool for the Maya. It was a spiritual guide, a way for them to live in harmony with the universe. But it wasn't just the long count that fascinated the Maya. They also used the Hab and Tsoken calendars, each serving a different purpose but working in tandem with one another. The Hab calendar was a solar calendar of 365 days, broken into 18 months of 20 days each, with one final month of 5 days. This was used for agricultural and seasonal purposes, tracking the movement of the sun through the year. The Tsoken, on the other hand, was a ritual calendar consisting of 260 days, and it was linked to the cycles of the moon and Venus. Together, these two calendars formed a framework for understanding the cycles of nature and the divine, a tool to help the Maya navigate both the practical and spiritual aspects of their lives. These three calendars, the long count, the Hab, and the Tsoken, were intricately intertwined, and the Maya believed that their ability to accurately calculate time gave them insight into the nature of the universe itself. Time wasn't just something that passed by. It was something that had meaning, purpose, and power. And at the heart of this belief was the understanding that time, like the universe, was cyclical. What was born would eventually die, and what died would eventually be reborn. This cycle, they believed, was not just inevitable. It was sacred. The end of one era was simply the beginning of another. This belief in the cyclical nature of time was fundamental to the Mayan worldview. The idea of time as an endless, repeating cycle was reflected in their architecture, their rituals, and even their mythology. The Maya constructed towering pyramids and temples, aligning them with the movements of the stars and planets. Their cities were designed to reflect the cosmic order, and their most sacred sites were positioned according to the precise alignments of celestial bodies. They understood that the fate of the world was tied to the movements of the stars, and that by aligning their lives with the cycles of time, they could bring themselves closer to the gods. Yet, despite this deep understanding of time and the cosmos, the Maya were not content to simply observe the heavens. They sought to actively engage with it. Through complex rituals and ceremonies, the Maya believed they could influence the gods and the forces of nature. These rituals were often tied to the calendars, timed to coincide with celestial events like the rising of Venus or the solstices. The Maya believed that by performing these rituals at the right time, they could bring about favorable outcomes, rain for crops, victory in battle, and blessings from the gods. In many ways, the Maya saw themselves as participants in the cosmic drama of life, death, and rebirth. Their connection to the stars wasn't abstract. It was personal. They believed that their actions on Earth were mirrored in the heavens, and that by understanding the movements of the stars and aligning their lives with these cosmic rhythms, they could better understand their place in the universe. Their calendars weren't just records of the passage of time. They were maps to the divine, guides to living in harmony with the cosmic order. This worldview, so deeply ingrained in their culture, shaped everything from the construction of their cities to their most sacred religious practices. It influenced their art, their architecture, and their social systems. The Maya were not merely observing the stars. They were engaged in an ongoing dialogue with the universe, one that was designed to help them understand their place in the grand, cyclical flow of existence. As we look back at the Maya today, it's easy to be awed by their astronomical achievements and the complexity of their calendars. But perhaps the true wonder of the Maya lies not in their ability to track the passage of time, but in the deeper meaning they attach to it. For the Maya, time wasn't just a series of days. It was a living, breathing force, one that connected them to the divine, to the cosmos, and to each other. Understanding the Maya's worldview of time, with its cycles and rhythms, is the first step toward unlocking the mystery of their greatest prophecy. The long count calendar was the heartbeat of the Maya's timekeeping system, a complex and highly accurate method of tracking the passage of time that spanned thousands of years. Unlike the more familiar calendars of today, which follow a simple linear progression of days, months, and years, the Maya saw time as a series of cycles, each one marked by specific astronomical events. These cycles were not arbitrary. They were seen as integral to the spiritual and physical well-being of the world itself. The long count, in particular, was a calendar of immense depth and precision, and it holds the key to understanding the Mayan worldview. To comprehend the true significance of the long count calendar, it is essential to first understand the Maya's view of time itself. For the Maya, time wasn't a straightforward sequence of events that moved in a single direction. Instead, it was a cyclical force that repeated and renewed itself in a continuous loop. The cycles of time mirrored the cycles of nature, the rise and fall of the sun, the changing of the seasons, the birth and death of living beings, and the rotation of the stars. Everything was interconnected, from the smallest seeds sprouting in the earth to the movements of the heavens. Life was a reflection of these larger cycles, and time was the underlying framework that kept everything in harmony. The long count calendar was the Maya's answer to tracking these grand, cosmic cycles. It was designed to measure long periods of time, allowing them to record history and map the heavens with incredible precision. The long count itself was based on the number of days that had passed since a specific starting point, the mythical creation date of the world, which the Maya placed at August 11, 3114 BCE in the Gregorian calendar. This starting date, known as the zero date, marked the beginning of the current age of the world, according to Maya cosmology. The calendar was structured around several key units of time, each representing a different span of days. Kin, the smallest unit, representing a single day. Winal, a period of 20 days. Tun, a period of 360 days, roughly 1 year. Katan, a period of 7,200 days, or about 20 years. Bactan, the largest unit, representing 144,000 days, or roughly 394 years. Each unit of the long count calendar was based on the number 20, except for the Tun, which was based on 18. This structure allowed the Maya to track time in vast, multi-generational cycles, spanning millennia. These periods were not just of academic interest to the Maya. They were imbued with spiritual meaning, linked to the divine and to the cosmic order. The Bactan was the largest and most significant of these units. When a Bactan came to an end, it marked the completion of a vast cycle of time, and the beginning of a new one. This was a moment of cosmic significance, a time of transformation, renewal, and sometimes even upheaval. The Maya believed that the end of a Bactan was an occasion for great spiritual reflection, a moment when the gods themselves might intervene in the affairs of men. These moments of transition were not seen as apocalyptic. They were seen as a natural part of the cycle of creation and destruction that governed the universe. In Maya civilization, the long count calendar wasn't just a tool for measuring time. It was also a way of understanding and interpreting the larger forces at play in the universe. The Maya had an almost mystical belief in the power of time. They believed that each period, whether it was a kin, a tun, or a Bactan, had its own unique qualities, characteristics, and spiritual energy. The Maya believed that each new cycle brought with it new possibilities, new energies, and new challenges. The calendar was intimately tied to the Maya's religious and ceremonial practices. Key moments in the long count, such as the end of a Bactan, were marked by elaborate rituals, feasts, and sacrifices. These events were not just about honoring the gods. They were also about understanding the deep, cyclical nature of existence itself. For the Maya, time was sacred. It was a force that shaped their very being, and the calendar served as a guide to help them live in harmony with it. The Maya also used the long count calendar to record important historical events. By aligning specific events with the calendar, They were able to create a timeline of their civilization's history, one that spanned thousands of years. The Maya were meticulous record keepers, and they used their calendar to mark the birth of rulers, the triumphs of kings, the dates of battles, and other key moments in their civilization's development. This calendar allowed them to keep track of the passage of time in a way that was both precise and meaningful. One of the most remarkable aspects of the long count calendar was its predictive power. The Maya did not just use it to record events. They used it to predict the future. By observing the movements of the celestial bodies, particularly the planets and stars, they could forecast important events in the future. This predictive aspect of the calendar was a critical part of their religious and political systems. Rulers and priests would consult the calendar to determine the best times for warfare, planting crops, or holding ceremonies. By aligning their activities with the cycles of the heavens, they believed they could align themselves with the will of the gods. But the calendar was not just about tracking the movement of celestial bodies. It was also about understanding the larger cosmic patterns that governed life on Earth. The Maya saw the world as a living entity, constantly changing and evolving, but also locked in an eternal cycle of creation and destruction. The calendar served as a map for navigating this ever-turning wheel of time. It helped the Maya understand where they were in the grand scheme of things, and where they were headed. This view of time was radically different from the linear perspective that dominates modern thinking. For us, time is something that moves in one direction, from the past, through the present, and into the future. But for the Maya, time was a wheel, always turning, always returning to its starting point, yet never the same. Each cycle brought with it a new opportunity for growth, but also the possibility of destruction. The Maya believed that the end of each cycle was not the end of the world, but the beginning of something new. It was this concept of time as a series of interconnected, repeating cycles that set the Mayan calendar apart from any other system in the ancient world. In their view, every Bacton was a reset, a renewal of the world and all life within it. The end of one Bacton and the beginning of another was a moment of great cosmic importance, and the Maya believed that these transitions marked important turning points in history. The 2012 prophecy, centered around the end of the 13th Bacton, was not an announcement of the world's destruction, as many modern interpretations suggested. It was the end of one cycle and the beginning of another, a moment of transformation, an opportunity for humanity to reset and realign itself with the forces of the universe. The long count calendar, with its intricate structure and profound meaning, encapsulated the Maya's belief in the cyclical nature of life. It was a reflection of their deeper spiritual understanding of time, one that saw time not as an inexorable forward march, but as a fluid and dynamic force. In this worldview, every end was merely a prelude to a new beginning, and every beginning was steeped in the lessons of the past. The Maya believed that by understanding time in this way, they could live in harmony with the natural and divine forces that shaped their world. The long count calendar was, in many ways, the Maya's greatest gift to the world, a system that not only allowed them to measure time with unmatched precision, but also helped them understand their place in the larger cosmic order. And it is through this calendar, and the profound worldview it represents, that we are able to glimpse the mystery of the Mayan prophecies and the deeper meaning of their predictions for our future. The Popol Vuh is one of the most sacred texts of the Maya civilization, and within its pages lie the myths, legends, and prophecies that shaped the spiritual and cultural landscape of this ancient people. Often referred to as the Mayan Bible, the Popol Vuh is a complex and profound narrative that intertwines the Maya's creation myths, their understanding of the cosmos, and their beliefs about the gods, nature, and the fate of humanity. What makes the Popol Vuh particularly intriguing is its deep connection to the cycles of time and the Maya's cyclical view of existence. The text is not merely a collection of stories. It is a roadmap to understanding the past, the present, and the future, all intertwined in a continuous loop. At its core, the Popol Vuh tells the story of the creation of the world and the gods who shaped it. The narrative begins with the primordial state of the universe, a time when the world was empty and silent. In this void, the gods, Tepukan and Gukyamats, two of the principal creators, decided to bring the world into being. They shaped the earth from the waters, forming the mountains, valleys, and rivers. The creation of humanity followed, but the gods encountered a significant challenge. They could not create beings who could worship them properly. Their first attempts, animals were not able to speak or acknowledge the gods. The gods then turned to a more ambitious creation. Human beings, made from clay, wood, and finally corn. The creation of humanity is a key element in the Popol Vuh. The gods' attempt to form beings who could honor them was a task fraught with failures and eventual triumph. The first humans made from clay were too fragile, breaking apart when they were given form. Then came the wooden people, who could walk and talk, but their hearts were empty. They lacked the ability to truly worship and honor the gods, and as a result, they were destroyed in a great flood. Finally, the gods created humans from maize, the most sacred of all crops and a symbol of life itself. These beings were perfect in the eyes of the gods, able to speak, think, and worship them as the divine beings they were. The story of the Popol Vuh is not simply one of creation. It is a tale of balance and cycles. The gods create, destroy, and create again, all within the framework of an ever-turning cycle. This cyclical nature of existence is a core tenet of Maya cosmology, where time is seen as a series of repeating patterns, each one a reflection of the one before it, yet each carrying its own unique meaning. The gods' repeated attempts to perfect their creations mirror the Maya's own understanding of time as an endless series of transformations, each one building upon the last. But the Popol Vuh also contains more than just the stories of the gods and the creation of the world. It holds prophecies and foretellings of future events, many of which echo in the Mayan predictions about the cycles of time and the eventual end of the world. Central to the Popol Vuh are the hero twins, Hunahpu and Spelank, who play pivotal roles in the myth. These twins, born from a mixture of divine and earthly blood, are the ones who defeat the forces of darkness and restore balance to the world. Their heroic deeds, however, are not just actions in a mythic story. They are deeply symbolic of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The hero twins' journey takes them into the underworld, a dark and dangerous place where they face trials and tribulations. The underworld, or Xibalba, is a place of death and destruction, but it is also a place of transformation. Here, the twins undergo trials that test their courage, wisdom, and resilience. The struggles they endure in Xibalba mirror the struggles that humanity must face throughout its own existence. The trials of life, the battles against adversity, and the ultimate victory over darkness and chaos. In overcoming these trials, the twins not only restore balance to the world, but also become symbolic of the eternal cycle of death and rebirth that the Maya believed was the essence of life. The twins' story echoes throughout Maya culture, for they embody the core values of Maya civilization: resilience, strength, and the ability to overcome adversity. They are the eternal figures who represent the possibility of renewal, and their victory over death is a symbol of the Maya's understanding that life is not simply about survival, but about transformation. This theme of transformation is central to the Mayan understanding of time, which they saw not as a linear progression but as a cyclical force of constant rebirth. What makes the Popol Vuh particularly fascinating in the context of the Maya's prophetic worldview is the way in which it speaks to the cyclical nature of time and the cosmic forces at play. The gods themselves are bound by these cycles, creating, destroying, and recreating in a constant flow. The hero twins' journey through Xibalba is not just a heroic quest. It is a manifestation of the larger cosmic order that governs all things. They are acting out the eternal dance between light and darkness, creation and destruction, life and death. The Popol Vuh also holds within it a prophecy about the eventual destruction of the world. The Maya believed that the world, like everything else, was subject to cycles of creation and destruction. Each Bacton represented a great cosmic cycle, and when these cycles reached their end, a new world would emerge. The Popol Vuh speaks of these transitions, but not in a way that suggests an apocalyptic ending. Instead, it suggests that the end of one cycle is a necessary part of the ongoing flow of time. The destruction of the world is not a final judgment, but a cleansing, a purification that prepares the world for the new cycle that will follow. This idea of cosmic destruction and renewal is echoed in the Maya's interpretation of the calendar. As they saw it, each Bacton marked the completion of a cycle, and with each completion came the potential for both destruction and rebirth. The end of the 13th Bacton, which occurred in 2012, was seen by many as a moment of great significance. Some interpreted it as a prophecy of the world's end, but for the Maya, it was simply the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. The Popol Vuh, with its themes of death and rebirth, offered a powerful reminder that time is not a finite resource, but a continuous flow of transformation. In the context of the 2012 prophecy, the Popol Vuh presents a more profound message. The Maya were not foretelling an apocalypse, but rather the closing of an era. The prophecy was not about the destruction of the world, but about the end of a cycle and the dawn of a new one, a moment of transformation that would allow for renewal and growth. Just as the hero twins emerged victorious from the trials of the underworld, so too would humanity emerge from the trials of one age and step into the potential of another. The Popol Vuh is more than just a creation myth. It is a blueprint for understanding the Maya's view of time, the cycles of the universe, and humanity's place within that cosmic flow. It reflects a worldview that saw death not as an end, but as a necessary step in the ongoing process of transformation. The Maya believed that by aligning themselves with the rhythms of the cosmos, they could achieve harmony with the universe itself. And in doing so, they could transcend the limitations of time and experience the eternal flow of creation and destruction. In many ways, the Popol Vuh provides the key to understanding the Mayan prophecy, especially the famous 2012 prediction. The prophecy was not about a literal end of the world, but a symbolic death, the death of one cycle of time, to make way for the birth of another. It is a message that speaks to the eternal nature of time and the possibility of renewal, reminding us that endings are merely the prelude to new beginnings. The Maya saw time as a living, breathing entity, and their prophecies, as captured in the Popol Vuh, are a testament to this belief, that the world, like the gods themselves, is bound to the eternal dance of creation, destruction, and rebirth. As we continue to unravel the mystery of the Mayan prophecy, it becomes clear that the end of one cycle was not a moment of doom, but a passage, a necessary transition. The Maya's view of time, encapsulated in the intricate long-count calendar, offered a deep understanding of cosmic cycles. But what truly sets the Mayan prophecy apart is how it resonates with the rhythms of human life, culture, and destiny. In this section, we delve deeper into the spiritual and philosophical aspects of Mayan prophecy, exploring how their understanding of time was not just a mathematical or astronomical tool, but a profound, living force that governed not only the heavens, but also the fate of humanity. The Maya did not see their civilization as separate from the cosmos. Instead, they believed that humanity was inextricably connected to the universe. Our actions, our thoughts, and our emotions were all reflected in the larger cycles of creation and destruction. Every event in human history, whether a war, a birth, or the rise of a new ruler, was seen as part of a larger cosmic drama. This belief that time was cyclical and interconnected permeated every aspect of their culture. From their art and architecture to their religious rituals and social structures, the Maya embedded their understanding of cosmic cycles into the very fabric of their civilization. One of the most striking features of Maya prophecy is its integration of divine will and human agency. In the Maya worldview, gods and humans were not separate entities. They were part of the same cosmic order, each influencing the other. The gods, with their celestial powers, were thought to send signs and omens that could guide the decisions of rulers and common people alike. This cosmic feedback loop was reflected in the Popol Vuh, where the gods continuously shaped the destiny of humanity, guiding them through challenges and tribulations, but also leaving room for human agency to play a part in the unfolding of the cosmic narrative. The Mayan belief in cycles extended beyond just the calendar. It was reflected in their mythology, their sacred texts, and their worldview. The gods themselves were bound to these cycles. They were both creators and destroyers, constantly involved in the grand dance of life and death, growth and decay. The Maya saw the gods as active participants in the process of cosmic renewal. In the Popol Vuh, for instance, the hero twins must undergo trials in the underworld, Xibalba, a dark and dangerous place. These trials were not only physical tests but spiritual ones, reflecting the universal struggles that each person would face during their lifetime. The battle between light and darkness, good and evil, life and death. The underworld, Xibalba, is a central part of Mayan mythology. It was not just a place of death, but a place of transformation. Just as the hero twins had to descend into this dark realm to face their trials, so too must humanity undergo a form of spiritual trial and transformation. In the Maya worldview, death was not an end, but a necessary transition that allowed for rebirth. Every death was seen as a part of a larger, cosmic cycle of renewal, just as the death of one world gave way to the creation of another. In this way, the Maya believed that their history was written in the stars, and the turning of the cycles could reveal divine messages and prophecies. The 2012 prophecy, marking the end of the 13th Bacton, captured the world's imagination, not just because of its supposed apocalyptic predictions, but because it called attention to this larger cyclical process. The Mayas' advanced understanding of astronomy led them to foresee a time of transformation, a shift in the cosmic flow. In the years leading up to 2012, the world saw a surge of interest in the prophecy, with theories ranging from planetary alignments to solar flares to a complete collapse of civilization. But in the context of the Mayas' cyclical view of time, the prophecy wasn't a prediction of destruction. It was a call for awareness. It was a reminder that the cosmic cycles of creation and destruction were not just abstract concepts. They were lived experiences, and they affected every facet of existence. The idea of transformation is at the heart of the Mayan prophecy. The end of the 13th Bacton signified the conclusion of a vast cycle, a cycle that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of rulers, the ebb and flow of human history. For the Maya, the end of a cycle was a moment of great spiritual significance. It was a time to pause, to reflect, and to prepare for the new cycle that would follow. It was not an apocalyptic end, but a cosmic reset, a time to realign humanity with the divine forces of the universe. The 2012 prophecy, then, was a call for introspection. It was a reminder that humanity had reached the end of one cycle, and that a new one was about to begin. The focus of the prophecy was not on the end of the world, but on the opportunity for spiritual and cultural renewal. Just as the hero twins emerged victorious from their trials in Xibalba, so too could humanity emerge from the challenges of the past and step into a new era of transformation. The Maya understood that every cycle, no matter how challenging, was a prelude to something new, something that had the potential for growth, enlightenment, and renewal. This understanding of time and transformation was not unique to the Maya. Across cultures, there has been a recurring theme of cyclical time and renewal. From the ancient Egyptians, who believed in the cyclical nature of creation and destruction, to the ancient Greeks, who saw history as a repeating pattern of rise and fall, to modern philosophies of perpetual renewal, the concept of cyclical time resonates across human history. The Maya, however, took this idea to a level of sophistication and precision that is still unmatched. In the years leading up to 2012, the world was consumed with the question, what will happen when the 13th Bacton ends? While the media sensationalized the apocalypse narrative, the deeper, spiritual message of the Maya prophecy remained largely overlooked. The Maya were not predicting an end, but a moment of cosmic renewal. The end of the 13th Bacton was a time to let go of the past and prepare for a new cycle. It was a time to reconnect with the divine, to reawaken our spiritual consciousness, and to realign ourselves with the rhythms of the universe. In the wake of 2012, the world did not end. But the prophecy had served its purpose, awakening humanity to the idea that we are participants in a larger cosmic flow. The moment of 2012 was not a singular event but a point of reflection, a moment in time that invited us to examine our place in the grand cycle of existence. It was a call for personal and collective transformation, an invitation to step into a new cycle of growth, awareness, and spiritual awakening. The Maya's deep understanding of cycles, of life and death, of creation and destruction, offers a powerful perspective on the challenges and opportunities we face today. Their prophecy was not a prediction of doom, but a reminder of the infinite possibilities that arise when we embrace the cyclical nature of existence. As we look to the future, we must remember that the end of one cycle is not an end at all. It is the beginning of a new era, one that holds the potential for renewal, transformation, and transcendence. And just as the Maya saw their place in the vast, interconnected web of time, so too must we. As we continue to explore the significance of the Mayan prophecy and its implications for the future, It's important to understand that the Maya did not simply predict a series of events, but rather, they understood the delicate interplay between cause and effect, order and chaos, light and dark. Their perception of time was inextricably linked to their spiritual and cosmological worldview. To the Maya, the very essence of existence was tied to balance. The balance between the gods and humanity, the balance between nature and civilization, and, perhaps most critically, the balance between time's eternal cycles. The Mayan calendar, and the prophecy associated with it, was not just a tool for predicting the future. It was a framework through which humanity could understand its role in the grand cosmic order. The prophecy, then, was not merely a warning or prediction. It was a call for alignment with the natural and spiritual forces that govern life. The Maya were deeply attuned to the rhythms of the world around them. They had a profound understanding of the interconnection between the heavens and the earth, between the celestial bodies and the daily lives of the people. Their advanced astronomical knowledge allowed them to track the movements of the stars, planets, and the sun with extraordinary accuracy. But this knowledge was not just intellectual, it was also spiritual. They believed that the heavens were a reflection of the divine order, and that by observing the movements of the celestial bodies, they could gain insights into the will of the gods and the forces shaping their world. One of the most striking aspects of the Maya's cosmological system was their view of the underworld, or Xibalba, which played a key role in the Mayan understanding of life, death, and rebirth. Xibalba was not merely a place of darkness or punishment. It was also a place of transformation, a realm where the soul could undergo trials and challenges before moving into a new phase of existence. The concept of transformation, especially in the context of death, was not seen as a final end for the Maya but as a natural and necessary part of the cosmic cycle. For the Maya, death was not an obstacle to life. It was a passage that allowed for renewal. This understanding of death and transformation is reflected in the myth of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, who descend into Xibalba to face trials, only to emerge victorious, symbolizing the triumph of life over death, light over darkness. The hero twins' journey to the underworld was not just a mythic story of adventure. It was a reflection of the larger cosmic process. The trials they faced were symbolic of the challenges that every soul must face on its journey through life. Their victory over Xibalba was not just a personal triumph. It was a victory for all of humanity, a reminder that even in the face of great darkness, there is always the possibility of rebirth, of new life emerging from the ashes of the old. This was a central theme in the Mayan worldview, the idea that destruction and creation are not opposing forces, but two sides of the same coin. Every end is followed by a new beginning, and every cycle of destruction leads to a new cycle of creation. In this context, the prophecy surrounding the end of the 13th Baktun in 2012 takes on a different meaning. While many interpreted the prophecy as a prediction of the end of the world, the Maya themselves saw it as a moment of transition, a symbolic closing of one cycle and the opening of another. It was not about the destruction of the world, but about the opportunity for transformation, a chance for humanity to renew itself, to shed the old and embrace the new. This perspective aligns closely with the idea of cosmic cycles as taught in the Popol Vuh, the endless ebb and flow of creation and destruction, life and death. The Maya believed that at the end of each Baktun, there was the potential for a cosmic reset, a chance to begin again. The 2012 prophecy was not an isolated event. It was part of a much larger, ongoing process of transformation. The end of the 13th Baktun was seen as the culmination of a vast cosmic cycle, but it was also the beginning of something new, a new age, a new era, a new chapter in the unfolding story of humanity. In this sense, the prophecy did not predict the end of civilization, but rather, it heralded the possibility of a spiritual awakening, a new understanding of humanity's place in the grand cosmic order. This idea of spiritual awakening is central to understanding the Mayan worldview and the significance of the 2012 prophecy. The Maya believed that time was not simply a linear progression, but a cyclical force that governed all aspects of life. Just as the seasons change, so too do the ages of the world. And just as the earth undergoes cycles of growth, decay, and rebirth, so too must humanity undergo its own cycles of transformation. The Maya understood that humanity was part of a larger cosmic drama, a drama that required us to not only recognize the cycles of time but to align ourselves with them, to live in harmony with the natural forces that govern life. The Mayan calendar was a tool for this alignment. It was a way of mapping the passage of time and understanding the deeper rhythms of the universe. The calendar itself was a reflection of the Mayas' belief in the interconnectedness of all things, the cycles of the heavens, the cycles of the earth, and the cycles of human life. By understanding the movements of the celestial bodies, the Maya believed they could better understand their own lives and destinies. The calendar was not just a way to track the days, but a spiritual guide, a way of living in harmony with the cosmos. The end of the 13th Bakhtin in 2012 was a moment for humanity to reflect on its own place in the grand cycle of creation and destruction. It was an invitation to align ourselves with the natural rhythms of the earth and the universe. The prophecy called for a shift in consciousness, a recognition that humanity's actions have consequences not only for the world around us but for the cosmos itself. The Maya understood that time is not something we control, but something we must flow with, a force that, when embraced, can lead to growth, renewal, and transformation. The prophecy, then, was not a warning of doom, but a reminder of the constant potential for transformation. It was a call for humanity to wake up, to recognize the interconnectedness of all things, and to step into a new era of spiritual awareness and cosmic alignment. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was a moment for us to look inward and reflect on our relationship with the earth, with each other, and with the universe. It was an invitation to embrace the cyclical nature of existence and to understand that every end is simply the beginning of a new cycle, one that offers the potential for renewal, healing, and growth. In this sense, the prophecy was not just about a specific moment in time, it was about the ongoing process of transformation that defines the human experience. The Maya saw their civilization as part of a larger cosmic order, and the 2012 prophecy was simply a reflection of that understanding. It was a call to remember that we are not separate from the cosmos, but part of its eternal flow. As the Maya believed, the end of one cycle is not a finality, but a transition, a passage that leads to something new. And if we are willing to embrace that transformation, we may find that the future holds possibilities beyond our wildest imaginations. As we continue to explore the impact and relevance of the Mayan prophecy, it becomes essential to examine how the Maya's spiritual beliefs and their understanding of time have shaped our modern interpretations of their calendar and prophecies. The Mayan worldview was not one that separated the sacred from the mundane. Instead, it was a holistic understanding of the universe where every aspect of life, both physical and spiritual, was interconnected. For the Maya, the cosmos was not something distant or abstract. It was a living, breathing entity, where every star, planet, and celestial movement had meaning. The prophecy surrounding the end of the 13th Bakhtin in 2012, far from being a mere prediction of disaster, was actually a reflection of the Maya's deep spiritual understanding of the cyclical nature of existence. In the Maya view, the cosmos was governed by forces that were both divine and natural, and they believed that the movements of celestial bodies reflected the divine will. The long count calendar, which tracked time in vast cycles, was a tool for understanding not only the passage of days and years, but also the larger spiritual and cosmic cycles that governed the world. The Maya's perception of time was not linear but cyclical, with each cycle bringing humanity through a series of phases, trials, and rebirths. These cycles were deeply tied to their religious beliefs, with each cycle corresponding to a different level of spiritual development and understanding. In this sense, time itself was sacred, a manifestation of the divine, and the calendar was the means by which they understood their place in the larger cosmic order. The Mayan concept of time was heavily influenced by their close relationship with the natural world, particularly the cycles of the sun, the moon, and the planets. The movements of these celestial bodies were seen as divine acts, each carrying its own spiritual significance. The Maya observed the heavens meticulously, tracking the cycles of the moon, the movements of Venus, and the paths of the stars. These astronomical observations were not just for practical purposes such as agriculture or navigation, they were a form of communication with the gods. By understanding the rhythms of the heavens, the Maya believed they could gain insight into the divine will and align their actions with the greater cosmic order. One of the most notable aspects of Maya astronomy was their fascination with the planet Venus, which they regarded as a powerful symbol of both life and death. The rising and setting of Venus were associated with the creation and destruction cycles. Venus movements in the sky were seen as a reflection of the cyclical nature of time itself. Its appearance marked moments of transformation and rebirth. The Dresden Codex, one of the Maya's most important surviving texts, contains detailed Venus tables that tracked the planet's movements with extraordinary precision. The Venus cycle was integral to the Maya's understanding of the passage of time, and its relationship to the 2012 prophecy is a key element in understanding why the end of the 13th Bakhtin was so significant. The 2012 prophecy was not merely about the end of the world, as many in modern times have suggested. Instead, it was about the culmination of a cosmic cycle, one in which humanity had been progressing through various stages of spiritual evolution. The prophecy was a message that humanity was reaching the end of a specific era, but it was not the end of existence itself. The Maya did not view the end of a cycle as a final death but as a moment of transformation, renewal, and rebirth. Just as the planet Venus rose and fell in a continuous cycle, so too did human history follow the rhythms of cosmic creation and destruction. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was not an ending in the conventional sense. It was simply the conclusion of one phase, a necessary turning of the wheel that would allow for a new beginning. This cyclical view of time was deeply ingrained in the Maya's cultural, spiritual, and political practices. The Maya believed that the rulers were divinely chosen to guide their people through these cycles, acting as intermediaries between the gods and the earth. The role of the king was not just political but spiritual. Kings performed rituals to ensure the proper alignment of the cycles, ensuring that the cosmic forces flowed smoothly and that the people were aligned with the divine will. The king's actions were seen as having direct consequences on the state of the world, and they believed that when the ruler acted in harmony with the divine forces, the kingdom would flourish. Conversely, when the ruler failed to align with the cosmic cycles, the world would suffer. The spiritual responsibility of the ruler was linked directly to the calendar. The long count and other calendars were used not just to track time but to structure the life of the king and his court. Rituals were carefully timed, and important events, such as battles, feasts, and sacrifices, were planned according to the alignment of the celestial bodies. The calendar was a tool that allowed the Maya to tap into the greater forces of the universe, aligning their actions with the divine will. It was a way of ensuring that the world was in balance, physically, spiritually, and cosmologically. As we turn our attention to the 2012 prophecy, it's important to understand how it was tied to these larger spiritual and cultural beliefs. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was not simply an astronomical event. It was a spiritual moment, a cosmic reset. The prophecy surrounding this moment was a reminder that humanity was always part of a greater cosmic cycle, and the Maya were urging us to remember our place in the grand scheme of things. The end of the Bakhtin was a chance for spiritual reflection, a time to reconnect with the natural world and with the divine forces that govern the universe. The modern obsession with the idea that the 2012 prophecy predicted an apocalypse stems from a misunderstanding of the Maya worldview. Western interpretations of the prophecy often focused on the idea of destruction, on the idea that the end of the 13th Bakhtin would mark the collapse of civilization. But for the Maya, the prophecy was not about destruction in the traditional sense. It was about the completion of one cycle and the opening of another. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was a moment of spiritual renewal, a chance for humanity to evolve, to shed the old ways and embrace the potential for growth and transformation. In this sense, the Mayan prophecy was not so much a prediction of a specific event as it was a philosophical and spiritual invitation. It was a call for humanity to recognize that we are part of a larger, ongoing cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth. The Maya did not see the end of a cycle as something to fear, but as an opportunity to realign with the divine, to step into a new phase of spiritual and cultural development. The 2012 prophecy, with all of its mystery and allure, was a reminder that time itself is cyclical. There is always an opportunity for renewal and growth, no matter how dire the circumstances may seem. The Maya understood that the forces of creation and destruction are not separate. They are interconnected, each playing a role in the unfolding drama of existence. The gods, nature, and humanity all participated in this grand cosmic cycle, and the end of each phase was an invitation to embrace transformation. The Mayan calendar, with its precision and complexity, was not just a tool for measuring time. It was a way of understanding our place in the universe, a way of recognizing the cyclical nature of all things. As we reflect on the 2012 prophecy, it becomes clear that the Maya were not predicting an apocalypse, but calling us to recognize the power of transformation. The world was not destined to end in 2012. Rather, it was given a chance to reset, to realign with the natural and divine forces that govern life. The prophecy was an invitation to step into a new era, one of spiritual renewal, one in which humanity could align itself with the greater cosmic flow, embracing the opportunity for growth, healing, and rebirth. As we continue to examine the enduring influence of the Mayan prophecy, it's important to delve deeper into how the concept of time and prophecy was not merely confined to the Maya, but rather connected to a broader tradition of ancient wisdom that spanned various cultures. Many civilizations across the globe, whether in Mesopotamia, Egypt, or Greece, shared a similar view of time as a cyclical force. They saw time not as a straight line leading from the past through the present to the future, but as a repeating cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth. This concept of cyclical time is one of the most striking features of ancient cosmologies and reveals how the Maya, among others, understood their role in a larger cosmic order. The end of the 13th Baktun in 2012 was not an isolated event in the Mayan worldview, but part of a much broader, ancient tradition of understanding the cosmos and humanity's relationship to it. This cyclical concept of time finds parallels in other ancient cultures. For instance, the ancient Egyptians held a similar belief in cyclical time, reflected in the rise and fall of the Nile, the changing of the seasons, and the eternal cycles of the sun. The Egyptians also revered the idea of death and rebirth, where the death of the sun each evening signified its journey through the underworld, only to rise again the next morning, reborn. Similarly, in Greek philosophy, the concept of eternal return was central to the teachings of philosophers like Heraclitus, who famously said, "Everything flows." For him, the universe was an ever-changing, cyclical process, constantly evolving, but never truly ending. Just as the Maya saw their existence as part of a repeating cycle, so too did the Greeks understand that all things are in a state of constant flux, forever returning in new forms. These ancient views of cyclical time were deeply spiritual in nature, tying the movements of the stars and the planets to the rhythms of human life. This concept of time was not just a way to track events or measure the passage of days. It was a way of understanding the divine order that governed both the heavens and the earth. The Maya, for example, used their long count calendar as more than just a method for marking time. It was a spiritual tool, a means of tapping into the cosmic forces that shaped their world. By tracking the movements of the heavens, they believed they could gain insight into the divine will and align themselves with the forces of the universe. The long count calendar is a particularly fascinating aspect of Mayan timekeeping. It was designed to track vast cycles, including the Great Baktun cycles, which lasted approximately 394 years. This calendar allowed the Maya to think in terms of large cosmic epics, understanding that their lives were part of an ongoing cosmic drama that extended far beyond their own lifetimes. The end of the 13th Baktun, which was believed to mark a major transition point in the Maya's understanding of time, was not simply an end to one cycle. It was seen as a pivotal moment in a much larger cosmic process, a time when humanity could realign itself with the natural rhythms of the universe. To fully grasp the significance of this transition, it's important to recognize that the Maya saw time not as a series of discrete events, but as a continuous, ever-unfolding process. The calendar cycles were interconnected, each one building upon the last. In this way, the end of the 13th Baktun could be seen not as an apocalyptic event, but as a natural culmination, a moment of convergence where the old cycle gives way to the new. The Popol Vuh, with its themes of creation, destruction, and renewal, reflects this belief. The story of the hero twins and their journey to the underworld mirrors the cyclical process of death and rebirth that the Maya believed was woven into the very fabric of the universe. The hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, underwent a series of trials in the underworld, facing dangers and challenges that ultimately led to their triumph over death and darkness. Their victory was not just a personal achievement, but a cosmic one, a victory of light over darkness, of life over death. This was the Maya's understanding of time in action. The cycles of creation and destruction, of life and death, are not separate forces but are inextricably linked. Just as the twins' journey through Xibalba led to their ultimate resurrection, so too would the end of the 13th Baktun lead to the birth of a new age, a new cycle of existence. The Mayas' belief in cyclical time also has implications for how we view prophecy and prediction. In modern times, prophecies are often seen as predictions of specific events, doom, disaster, or some kind of grand apocalyptic ending. This is how the 2012 prophecy became popularly understood in the West, as a prediction of the world's end. However, the Mayan approach to prophecy was far more nuanced. The Maya did not see prophecy as a fixed prediction of the future, but rather as a way of understanding the current cycle and preparing for the transitions that were bound to occur as time moved forward. Prophecies, in the Mayan worldview, were not about knowing the exact future, but about understanding the natural flow of time and being ready for the changes that were inevitable. For the Maya, prophecy was about aligning oneself with the natural order of the universe, recognizing the signs and omens that appeared in the celestial and earthly realms, and preparing for the shifts that were coming. The end of the 13th Baktun was not about predicting a dramatic, world-ending event. Rather, it was a symbolic moment, a marker that indicated the end of one era and the beginning of another. It was a reminder that all things are in constant flux, that every beginning is followed by an end, and every end is followed by a new beginning. The prophecy of 2012 was a call to awareness, a call to prepare for the spiritual and cosmic transformation that was underway, whether or not it manifested as a dramatic, visible event. In understanding the Mayan view of prophecy, it is crucial to see it as a way of participating in the larger cosmic flow rather than attempting to control or predict the future. The Maya did not see the world as something to be mastered or conquered. Instead, they saw themselves as part of an ongoing process that was greater than any individual or civilization. They understood that humanity's role was not to control time or the cycles of the universe, but to live in harmony with them. This philosophy is reflected in the way they structured their society, with rulers serving as intermediaries between the gods and the people, ensuring that the cycles of time were respected and that the divine forces were properly honored. The concept of cyclical time has continued to resonate with modern thinkers and spiritual leaders, particularly in the context of our current global crises. Many contemporary environmental and spiritual movements emphasize the importance of aligning humanity's actions with the rhythms of the earth and the cosmos. The Mayan understanding of time as cyclical reminds us that we are not separate from the natural world, but deeply interconnected with it. The Maya understood that all cycles, whether they were the seasons, the agricultural cycle, or the cosmic cycles, were part of a greater, interconnected system. Our actions, they believed, had consequences not only for ourselves but for the world around us, and ultimately for the universe itself. As we reflect on the end of the 13th Baktun and the modern interpretations of the 2012 prophecy, it's clear that the Mayan calendar was not just a tool for measuring time, it was a way of understanding humanity's place in the grand cosmic order. The prophecy was not a prediction of the world's end, but a call to remember that all things are cyclical. It was a reminder that we are part of a larger process of creation and destruction, that every era has its rise and fall, and that the future is not fixed, but continuously unfolding in a series of cycles. As we move forward into the future, we can draw valuable lessons from the Mayan perspective on time and prophecy. The cyclical nature of time reminds us that we are constantly evolving, that every challenge or hardship we face is a part of a larger transformation, and that new opportunities for growth and renewal are always on the horizon. The prophecy of 2012, when understood in its true context, serves as a reminder that we are not passive observers of history, but active participants in the ongoing flow of time. It is a call to align ourselves with the cosmic rhythms of creation, to embrace change, and to prepare for the new cycles that are always beginning. As we continue to peel back the layers of the Mayan prophecy, we must also acknowledge the complex relationship between the Maya's cultural identity and their prophetic vision. The ancient Maya were not just astronomers or mathematicians. They were deeply spiritual people whose worldview was inherently tied to the cyclical nature of the cosmos. The prophecy of 2012, the end of the 13th Baktun, was not merely a prophecy of fate or doom but a deeply spiritual moment that mirrored the very essence of the Mayan civilization. To understand the true significance of the Mayan calendar and its cycles, we must first immerse ourselves in the beliefs that shaped the civilization's profound connection to the universe. The Mayas' understanding of time was rooted in their broader cosmological vision. The universe, as the Maya saw it, was not simply a space of celestial bodies moving in an arbitrary manner. It was a sacred, ordered structure where everything had a specific role. The cycles of time were seen as a direct reflection of the divine order. Each cycle, or Bacton, represented not only a span of time but a phase in the evolution of human civilization and spiritual development. Thus, the Mayan calendar wasn't just a means to mark the passage of time. It was a cosmic map, a living document of humanity's relationship with the divine. At the heart of the Mayas' understanding of time and prophecy was their belief in balance, not just as a theoretical concept, but as something that governed the very structure of the universe. In their view, the universe was a place where dualities, such as light and dark, life and death, creation and destruction, were always in a delicate, ever-changing balance. The Popol Vuh, one of the most important texts in Maya literature, reflects this belief in balance. In it, the gods struggle to maintain harmony in the face of chaos, and humanity's role is to help preserve this equilibrium by living in alignment with the natural and divine forces at play. The story of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, is an archetypal example of the Mayas' understanding of balance and transformation. These two figures are not only gods but also symbols of humanity's potential to overcome adversity, face death, and emerge transformed. Their journey through Xibalba, the underworld, represents the ultimate trial, a descent into darkness followed by a resurrection into light. In this journey, they not only conquer death but also confront the forces of disorder, restoring balance to the cosmos. This myth, deeply ingrained in Maya thought, illustrates the cyclical nature of existence, where death and rebirth are not ends in themselves but part of an ongoing cosmic cycle. The hero twins' victory over Xibalba was not merely a personal triumph. It was a restoration of order to the world. The Mayas saw their world as constantly teetering between order and chaos, and they believed it was their role to maintain this balance. This belief was reflected in their ceremonies, rituals, and even in the political structure of their society. The rulers, who were believed to be divinely chosen, acted as intermediaries between the gods and the people. Their primary responsibility was to ensure that the cycles of time and the natural world were honored, and to keep the cosmic balance in check. The role of the king was of paramount importance, not just as a political leader but as a spiritual figure. A king's actions could affect the entire realm, as his relationship with the gods directly influenced the balance of the cosmos. Kings performed elaborate rituals designed to appease the gods and ensure the smooth progression of time cycles. These rituals were not mere formalities. They were believed to have real, tangible effects on the state of the world. Just as the gods played a role in the cycles of time, the kings were seen as key players in ensuring that the world remained in harmony with the divine forces at work. This concept of balance was also reflected in the Mayas' agricultural practices. The agricultural cycle, with its seasons of planting and harvesting, mirrored the larger cosmic cycles. The Maya understood that life was dependent on the cycles of nature, and they believed that human actions, both spiritual and physical, could influence the outcome of the crops, the health of the people, and the state of the cosmos itself. The act of planting and harvesting was not just a survival tactic. It was a sacred responsibility, an act of alignment with the cosmic order. The Maya were also keenly aware of the interconnectedness of the physical world and the spiritual realm. Their cities, temples, and pyramids were not built as mere monuments to human achievement. They were constructed as places that reflected the divine order. The layout of their cities was meticulously planned, with each building, plaza, and pyramid placed in alignment with the movements of the stars and planets. These structures were not just architectural feats. They were symbolic representations of the Mayas' understanding of their place in the cosmic order. This sense of interconnectedness also extended to their understanding of death. For the Maya, death was not an end but a transition into another phase of existence. The deceased were believed to journey to the underworld, where they would undergo a series of trials before reaching their final resting place. The journey through Xibalba was not just a passage of death, but a process of purification, a necessary step in the continuous flow of life and death. In this way, death was not feared. It was seen as a vital part of the ongoing cycle of existence. This spiritual view of life and death is crucial to understanding the Mayan prophecy, especially in the context of 2012. The end of the 13th Baktun was not meant to signal an end of humanity or the collapse of civilization. It was a spiritual marker, a moment to pause, reflect, and prepare for the next cycle. The Maya believed that at the end of each cycle, there was a need for spiritual renewal. Just as the hero twins emerged victorious from their trials in the underworld, so too could humanity rise from the challenges of the past and enter a new phase of spiritual evolution. The modern fascination with the Mayan prophecy, particularly the end of the 13th Baktun, often focuses on the idea of an apocalypse or a great cosmic catastrophe. But the true message of the Maya was far more subtle and profound. The prophecy was not about the destruction of the world, but about the opportunity for renewal. It was a reminder that humanity is not a passive observer of time's cycles, but an active participant. The Maya, in their wisdom, understood that every end was followed by a new beginning, that every destruction was followed by creation, and that each cycle of time was an opportunity to evolve spiritually. As we reflect on the Mayan prophecy, we are reminded of the importance of balance in our own lives. In the modern world, it's easy to forget our connection to the larger rhythms of the universe. We often live in a linear, goal-oriented fashion, thinking of time as a resource to be used up rather than a sacred force to be respected. The Maya, however, saw time as something much more profound. Time, for them, was not something to control but something to flow with, a cosmic dance in which humanity played a central role. The end of the 13th Baktun was a moment to reflect on our place in this dance, to reconnect with the rhythms of the cosmos and realign ourselves with the forces that govern life. In the years leading up to 2012, many people around the world were captivated by the idea of a great transformation, a shift in consciousness that would coincide with the end of the Mayan calendar. Some feared an apocalypse, while others hoped for a spiritual awakening. What the Maya understood, however, was that transformation is not something that happens in a single moment. It is a continuous process, one that unfolds gradually over time. The end of the 13th Baktun was not a sudden, cataclysmic event. Instead, it was a natural point of transition, an invitation to embrace the inevitable cycles of creation and destruction, and to prepare ourselves for the next phase in the evolution of human consciousness. It was a call to recognize that we are part of a larger, cosmic flow, a flow that continues to shape the destiny of all living things. As we venture further into the heart of the Mayan prophecy, it becomes apparent that the significance of the 13th Baktun and its connection to the cycles of time and cosmic order cannot be fully appreciated without understanding the larger philosophical and spiritual principles that underpinned the Maya civilization. The Maya were not just mathematicians, astronomers, or builders. They were deeply immersed in a worldview that saw all aspects of life as part of a continuous, cyclical flow. This understanding of time, life, death, and the cosmos was integral to their culture and permeated all aspects of their society. As we explore the deeper meaning of their prophecy, it's crucial to reflect on how their vision of time and prophecy continues to influence our modern perceptions of history, spirituality, and the future. To the Maya, time was not linear, as it is often perceived in the Western world, where the past leads to the present, and the present propels us into the future. Instead, the Maya viewed time as cyclical, a repeating sequence of events, a never-ending loop of creation and destruction, life and death. The passage of time, therefore, was not just a measurement of moments but a living force that governed the cosmos. The Mayan calendar, specifically the long count calendar, was a representation of this cyclical view of time. It mapped the vast stretches of history, covering thousands of years, and tracked the celestial movements of planets, stars, and the sun. Each cycle in the calendar, represented by a Baktun, was a significant spiritual and cosmic phase. The end of the 13th Baktun, the one that culminated in 2012, was not merely a marker of the passing of time, but a symbol of the completion of one grand cosmic cycle. The Maya believed that these cycles were deeply interconnected with their spiritual and material lives, and each Bacton represented an opportunity for growth, transformation, and renewal. The end of the 13th Bacton was not a destructive moment but a point of transition, where the old cycle gave way to the new, a time to reflect on the past and prepare for the spiritual, cultural, and cosmic changes ahead. The transition from one Bacton to the next was seen as an opportunity to realign with the divine forces of the universe. The Maya believed that the actions of humanity had a direct impact on the world around them. Their rituals, ceremonies, and offerings to the gods were designed not only to ensure prosperity and stability in their kingdom, but to keep the natural and spiritual forces in balance. The rulers, priests, and shamans acted as intermediaries between the human world and the divine realms, and their understanding of the cycles of time was integral to maintaining harmony in their society. One of the key aspects of Mayan spirituality was the belief that humanity was intricately tied to the natural world. The Maya understood that the cycles of the heavens, such as the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, were not separate from human life, but were a reflection of the divine order that governed all existence. In this context, the 13th Bacton was not simply a date on a calendar, but a moment of profound spiritual significance. The Maya saw their lives as part of an ongoing cosmic process, and the end of the 13th Bacton was a time to reassess their place in that process, to reflect on their actions, and to prepare for the next phase of their spiritual evolution. In understanding the Mayan approach to time and prophecy, it is important to see it as a reflection of their deep philosophical and spiritual beliefs. For the Maya, time was not a human construct, but a living, breathing force that flowed through all things. It was a divine force that connected the heavens, the earth, and humanity. The Mayan calendar was not just a system for tracking days, but a tool for understanding the natural and spiritual forces that govern the world. The prophecy surrounding the end of the 13th Bacton was not a prediction of an apocalypse or a disaster. It was a spiritual invitation, a call to realign with the cosmic rhythms that shaped the universe. The Maya were also keenly aware of the importance of human consciousness in shaping the future. While the prophecy of 2012 was tied to the cosmic cycles, it was also a reminder that humanity had a role to play in the unfolding of time. The Maya understood that the choices and actions of individuals could influence the course of history, both in the material world and in the spiritual realms. The end of the 13th Bacton was not a moment to wait passively for change, but an invitation to take responsibility for the future, an opportunity for humanity to actively shape the next phase of the cosmic cycle. This idea of human agency in the unfolding of the cosmic cycles is one of the most striking aspects of Mayan thought. Unlike many modern interpretations of prophecy, which often focus on the idea of fate or predestination, the Maya saw the future as something that was fluid and malleable. The prophecy was not a fixed outcome, but a reflection of the potential paths that could be taken. It was a call for humanity to be conscious of the forces at play in the world and to make choices that would align with the natural and spiritual order. In this light, the Mayan prophecy of 2012 was not just about the end of one cycle, but about the potential for transformation, both on a personal and collective level. It was a reminder that the end of one era is always followed by the beginning of another, and that each cycle presents an opportunity for renewal. The 13th Bacton was a moment to reflect on the past, but it was also a time to envision the future. The Maya understood that the future is not something that happens to us, but something that we create through our actions, thoughts, and intentions. This perspective is particularly relevant today, as we find ourselves living in a time of great upheaval and transformation. The world faces challenges that are both material, such as climate change, political unrest, and economic instability, and spiritual, as humanity grapples with questions of purpose, meaning, and connection. In many ways, the message of the Mayan prophecy is more relevant now than ever before. The prophecy calls on us to look inward and reflect on our place in the grand cosmic cycle, to recognize that we are not separate from the earth, the heavens, or each other. We are part of an interconnected web of existence, and our actions have consequences not only for ourselves but for the world around us. The end of the 13th Bacton was a moment for humanity to pause, reflect, and realign with the natural rhythms of the universe. It was an invitation to shed the old, to leave behind outdated ways of thinking and being, and to embrace a new phase of spiritual and cultural evolution. This process of transformation is not always easy. It requires us to confront our fears, our limitations, and our mistakes. It calls us to let go of old patterns and beliefs that no longer serve us, and to open ourselves to new possibilities and new ways of thinking. The Maya understood that transformation is not a sudden event, but a gradual process that unfolds over time. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was not an apocalypse, but a spiritual awakening, a chance for humanity to step into a new era of consciousness and understanding. It was a reminder that, just as the cycles of time are eternal, so too are the possibilities for growth, renewal, and change. As we reflect on the Mayan prophecy, it's clear that the true message of the 13th Bakhtin is not one of doom, but of potential. It is an invitation to reconnect with the natural and spiritual forces that govern the universe, and to actively participate in the creation of a new world, one that is more in harmony with the earth, with each other, and with the cosmic flow of time. The prophecy was not a prediction of an end, but a call to embrace the beginning of something new. It is a reminder that every ending is simply a prelude to a new beginning, and that the future is ours to shape, if only we have the courage and wisdom to do so. As we delve even deeper into the essence of the Mayan prophecy, we come to realize that the true significance of their spiritual vision was not just tied to the end of the 13th Bakhtin, but to the larger, ongoing relationship between humanity and the cosmos. The prophecy is often viewed through a modern lens of anticipation, fear, and speculation. However, the Maya's worldview, especially in regard to time and transformation, was far more complex and spiritually profound. They didn't simply focus on an isolated point in time. Rather, they saw the end of one cycle as a moment of profound spiritual reflection, a time to prepare for the next great leap in human evolution. The Maya's understanding of time was inextricably linked to their deep reverence for the natural world and its cyclical patterns. They believed that humanity was part of a much larger, grander order of existence that stretched beyond the bounds of their individual lifetimes. In their worldview, everything had a purpose. Every star, every movement in the sky, every change in the seasons was part of an intricate, divine design. The Maya were not passive observers of this cosmic drama. They saw themselves as active participants, involved in a continual process of renewal, transformation, and spiritual growth. The prophecy of the 13th Bakhtin was, therefore, not simply a forecast of an end, but an invitation to engage in this process of cosmic renewal. What makes the Mayan view of time so intriguing is that it combines two seemingly contradictory ideas: the inevitable passage of time and the perpetual potential for renewal. In Western thought, time is often seen as a linear progression, where the future is a continuous extension of the past, and the end of one thing marks the beginning of something else. The Maya, however, understood that each moment contained the potential for both destruction and creation, both death and rebirth. In their eyes, the end of the 13th Bakhtin was not a final event, but a pivotal point in an eternal cycle of spiritual awakening and transformation. One of the most captivating elements of the Maya's prophetic teachings was their belief in spiritual ascension. They saw the passing of time and the unfolding of cycles not as a slow, inevitable decline, but as a process of upward spiritual movement. The cycles, they believed, offered humanity the opportunity to evolve, to rise above the limitations of the material world, and to align more closely with the divine forces of the cosmos. This concept of ascension is central to the Mayan prophecy and is reflected in the overarching message of the 13th Bakhtin, that the end of one cycle represents the opening of a new phase of spiritual growth. The Maya did not view time as something external to themselves. Instead, they saw time as an integral part of their own spiritual journeys. The long count calendar, which tracked the vast cycles of time, was a map of human evolution, with each Bakhtin representing a different stage in the spiritual ascent of humanity. Just as the physical world goes through cycles of birth, growth, decay, and death, so too did the soul. The 13th Bakhtin was a symbol of spiritual culmination, representing the closing of one chapter in human evolution and the potential for a new spiritual beginning. This understanding of time is also reflected in the Maya's emphasis on the importance of the present moment. In many ways, The end of the 13th Bacton was a moment for humanity to pause and reflect on its place within the larger cosmic order. The Maya believed that the key to spiritual evolution lay not in focusing on the past or obsessing about the future, but in living fully in the present. They understood that each moment, each action, each decision, had the potential to either align or disalign humanity with the divine will. The end of the 13th Bacton, therefore, was not a time to dwell on what had been or what was to come. It was a call to live fully in the now, to recognize the cosmic forces at work, and to prepare for the new cycle of spiritual awakening that was just beginning. The Maya were also acutely aware of the power of human intention. They believed that the spiritual forces of the universe could be shaped and influenced by human action, thought, and ritual. The end of the 13th Bacton was, in essence, an opportunity to recalibrate human intentions, to align them with the divine forces that govern time and the cosmos. In their eyes, humanity's spiritual journey was not just about passive waiting for the next great cycle, but about actively participating in the unfolding of the universe. This meant that humanity's actions were not just meaningful for their immediate world. They had repercussions that rippled outward into the greater cosmic order. This idea of the connection between human action and cosmic forces is illustrated by the Maya's elaborate ritualistic practices. The Maya performed rituals to mark the passage of time and to honor the gods. These ceremonies were not only for the benefit of the individual or the community, but for the world at large. They were seen as ways of maintaining harmony between the human and divine realms, ensuring that the cycles of the universe continued uninterrupted. The Maya believed that by performing rituals, they could influence the course of time, bringing about favorable outcomes for their people and the world as a whole. Rituals were not only tied to specific times in the calendar but were also deeply connected to the spiritual needs of the individual. For the Maya, personal spiritual development was intricately tied to the larger cosmic processes, and the end of the 13th Bacton represented a moment of personal reckoning. It was a time for individuals to reflect on their own spiritual journey, to assess their alignment with the divine forces at play, and to make the necessary changes in their lives. The Maya understood that spiritual growth required conscious effort and intention, and the end of the 13th Bacton was a sacred time to engage in this process of transformation. The significance of the 13th Bacton was also a recognition of the need for collective transformation. The end of one cycle was not just a personal event, but a collective one. The Maya saw themselves as part of a larger community, one that included not only their immediate family and society, but also their ancestors, the gods, and the natural world. The actions of each individual, therefore, had consequences not just for themselves, but for the world as a whole. In this way, the end of the 13th Bacton was a time for the collective soul of humanity to recalibrate, to heal, and to align itself more fully with the divine forces that govern the universe. The idea of a collective spiritual awakening is one of the central themes of the Mayan prophecy. It is not just about the individual, but about humanity as a whole coming into alignment with the natural and divine forces of the cosmos. The prophecy calls on humanity to awaken to its true spiritual nature, to transcend the limitations of the material world, and to embrace the divine potential that lies within each person. This awakening is not a one-time event, but a continuous process of growth and transformation, one that unfolds over the course of many cycles. As we look at the world today, it is clear that the message of the Mayan prophecy is more relevant than ever. The modern world is in a state of crisis, both material and spiritual. We face unprecedented challenges, from environmental destruction and political instability to a growing sense of disconnection from the divine and from one another. The end of the 13th Bacton, and the spiritual invitation it carries, is not just a relic of the past. It is a call to action for all of humanity, a call to awaken, to realign with the natural and spiritual forces of the cosmos, and to embrace the potential for transformation that lies within each of us. In this sense, the Mayan prophecy is not just a prediction of an impending event, but a timeless reminder of humanity's spiritual potential. It reminds us that we are not isolated beings, but part of a larger, interconnected cosmos. Our actions, our intentions, and our spiritual growth have profound consequences, not just for ourselves, but for the world at large. The end of the 13th Bacton was not a single event to fear, but a pivotal moment in the ongoing spiritual evolution of humanity. It was an invitation to engage with the cosmic rhythms of creation and destruction, to reflect on our past actions, and to step into the future with intention and purpose. The legacy of the Maya, then, is not just in their grand cities, their stunning achievements in astronomy, and their profound understanding of time. It lies in the spiritual message they left behind, a message that transcends the specifics of their culture and resonates with all of humanity. The Mayan prophecy of 2012 was not just about predicting the end of the world, but about reminding us that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves. It is a call to recognize the interconnectedness of all things, to embrace the cycles of transformation, and to awaken to the divine potential that lies within each of us. The Maya understood that humanity's true purpose is not merely to survive, but to evolve spiritually, and the end of the 13th Bakhtin was the perfect moment to reflect on that journey. The Maya's understanding of time, prophecy, and cosmic alignment was profoundly intertwined with their worldview, creating a holistic system in which the spiritual, physical, and cosmic realms were inseparable. Their approach to prophecy, particularly concerning the 13th Bakhtin, was not focused on predicting a catastrophic end, but rather on reflecting the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. This perspective stands in stark contrast to many modern interpretations of prophecy, which often tend to be fixated on apocalyptic visions, rather than understanding prophecy as a tool for spiritual evolution and societal renewal. For the Maya, prophecy was deeply rooted in their belief in cosmic cycles, with each cycle corresponding to a specific phase of spiritual development for both humanity and the world. The 13th Bakhtin, which culminated in 2012, represented the completion of a spiritual journey, a turning point in a vast, ongoing cycle of evolution. The end of this cycle was not an isolated, dramatic event but part of a larger, more enduring process of cosmic harmony. To the Maya, the universe itself was not a random series of events, but a divine, ordered system where everything from the stars in the sky to the crops in the field was interconnected and synchronized. This cyclical understanding of time formed the basis of their concept of prophetic time. In contrast to linear time, where the future is seen as an extension of the past, the Maya believed that time was a repeating cycle, with each new cycle building upon the previous one. These cycles were not just abstract measurements of time, but powerful spiritual forces that shaped the lives of individuals and entire civilizations. The 13th Bakhtin was significant because it marked the completion of a major cycle, signaling the close of one era and the beginning of another. It was a time for reflection and recalibration, for humanity to reconnect with the cosmic rhythms of the universe and prepare for the next phase of spiritual evolution. The Mayan calendar was the key tool they used to map these cycles. The long count calendar, which tracked the days since a mythical creation date, was not only a practical system for measuring time, but a spiritual roadmap for the Maya. It gave them insight into the larger cycles of creation and destruction that governed the world. The calendar served as a guide to understanding the hidden forces of the universe, providing a framework for navigating the spiritual journey of life. To the Maya, time was not simply a matter of tracking events. It was a spiritual compass that guided their actions, beliefs, and decisions. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was a natural marker in this vast spiritual journey, a signal that humanity was on the cusp of a new era, a moment of profound cosmic significance. One of the key concepts embedded in this understanding of time was the belief in spiritual rebirth. The Maya did not see death as an end, but as a transition into another state of being. This belief in death and rebirth permeated their religion, rituals, and understanding of the cosmos. Much like the hero twins of the Popol Vuh, who ventured into the underworld and emerged victorious, the Maya believed that the world itself would undergo cycles of death and rebirth. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was not the death of the world but a moment of cosmic transformation, a time when humanity could shed the old, like a serpent shedding its skin, and emerge into a new spiritual state. This belief is reflected in the very structure of the Mayan calendar, with each cycle of time offering humanity the chance to evolve, spiritually and culturally. This cyclical view of time and the focus on spiritual renewal can also be understood through the lens of Mayan rituals and ceremonies, which were deeply tied to the cycles of the natural world. For the Maya, Ritual was not a mere formality but a sacred act that helped to maintain cosmic order. Their ceremonies were designed to honor the gods and ensure that the cycles of time continued uninterrupted. The Maya believed that the gods created the universe and, through their divine actions, sustained the cosmic order. Humanity's role, in turn, was to maintain balance and harmony by performing rituals that honored the divine and upheld the natural rhythms of the universe. These rituals were a way of participating in the great cosmic dance, aligning human actions with the movements of the stars, the seasons, and the cycles of time. The Maya also had a profound understanding of human agency in the context of the cosmic cycles. While they believed in the inherent order of the universe, they also recognized that humanity had a role to play in shaping the course of events. The choices individuals made, both on a personal and collective level, had consequences not only for themselves but for the world at large. This understanding of human agency was reflected in their religious practices, where the king, as the intermediary between the gods and the people, played a crucial role in ensuring that the cosmic cycles remained in balance. The king's actions could either contribute to or disrupt the harmony of the universe. His responsibility was not only to govern the physical realm but also to ensure that the spiritual realm remained in alignment with the divine order. One of the most striking features of the Mayan worldview was their understanding of interconnectedness. For the Maya, everything in the universe, every being, every object, every event was part of an intricate web of existence. This belief in interconnectedness extended beyond the physical world to include the spiritual realm as well. The gods, the ancestors, and humanity were all part of this interconnected web, each influencing and shaping the other. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was seen as a moment to reflect on this interconnectedness, to recognize that the actions of individuals and societies had far-reaching consequences that reverberated throughout the cosmos. It was a time to reaffirm humanity's responsibility to maintain balance and harmony with the divine and natural worlds. As we attempt to grasp the significance of the Mayan prophecy, we must also consider the broader historical context in which the prophecy emerged. The Maya civilization, at its peak, was one of the most advanced societies in the ancient world. Their knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and architecture was unparalleled, and their understanding of time and its cycles was far beyond that of many other cultures of the time. The Maya's deep spiritual connection to the cosmos allowed them to create a sophisticated system of calendars, monuments, and observatories that tracked the movements of the stars, the planets, and the sun with incredible precision. Their calendar systems, particularly the long count, were tools for mapping the passage of time and understanding the larger cosmic cycles that govern the universe. The prophecy of the 13th Bakhtin was not an isolated event but a culmination of centuries of spiritual and intellectual development. It reflected the Maya's deep understanding of the natural world and their belief in the cyclical nature of time. Yet, as advanced as their understanding of time and prophecy was, the Maya also recognized the limits of human knowledge. They knew that there were forces at work in the universe beyond their comprehension. While the long count calendar provided a framework for understanding the cycles of time, it was not a tool for predicting specific events. Instead, it was a guide for understanding the broader rhythms of the universe and humanity's role within it. The prophecy of 2012 was, in essence, a reminder that the future is not fixed, that time is a fluid, ever-changing force, and that humanity's role is to navigate that flow with wisdom, awareness, and reverence for the divine forces that shape the world. The Maya's concept of prophecy, then, was not about predicting a predetermined end or event, but about offering a spiritual roadmap for humanity to follow. It was a call to recognize the cycles of life, to honor the interconnectedness of all things, and to prepare for the inevitable transformations that come with each new cycle. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was a powerful reminder that time is not something to fear but something to embrace. It was an invitation to shed the old, to renew the spirit, and to step forward into a new phase of spiritual and cultural evolution. This message resonates deeply in our modern world, which is facing unprecedented challenges on both a global and personal level. The world today, much like the world of the Maya, is at a crossroads with environmental, political, and social crises threatening the fabric of our civilization. The prophecy of 2012, when understood in its true context, is not a warning of impending doom, but a call to action. It is a reminder that we are part of an ongoing cycle of transformation, and that the choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow. Just as the Maya looked to the end of the 13th Bakhtin as a moment of spiritual renewal, so too can we use this time to reflect on our place in the world, to realign ourselves with the rhythms of the cosmos, and to prepare for the next phase of our collective spiritual evolution. The Maya's message, then, is not one of fear but of hope. It is an invitation to participate in the cosmic cycles of creation and destruction, to embrace the inevitable changes that life brings, and to recognize that every ending is simply the beginning of a new phase in the eternal dance of the universe. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was a moment to reflect, to renew, and to step forward with awareness and purpose. It was a reminder that we are all part of a much larger, interconnected cosmos, and that our actions, both individually and collectively, have far-reaching consequences. In embracing this understanding, we can navigate the cycles of time with wisdom and grace, just as the Maya did for centuries before us. As we continue to explore the significance of the 13th Bakhtin in the context of the Mayan prophecy, we begin to see that the key to understanding its spiritual implications lies not only in the Maya's cosmic worldview but also in their profound relationship with the natural world. For the Maya, the cycles of time were not merely abstract concepts, but reflections of the patterns of nature, the stars, and the earth itself. To them, time was an ever-flowing river, perpetually moving forward while remaining tied to the eternal, unchanging rhythms of the universe. This connection between the cycles of time and the natural world was what made their prophetic vision so powerful, as it allowed them to understand the future not as a distant, unknowable event, but as part of a living, breathing system that they could influence and align with. One of the most crucial aspects of the Mayan view of time was their understanding of synchronicity, the idea that human lives were not separate from the movements of the stars and the cycles of the earth. Every aspect of their existence, from the smallest rituals to the grandest decisions of state, was seen as part of a larger cosmic flow. The Mayan people believed that their actions had direct consequences on the natural world, and in turn, the natural world had an immense impact on their spiritual lives. This symbiotic relationship between humanity and nature was reflected in the Mayan calendar, which tracked not just the passage of time, but the seasons, the agricultural cycles, and the movements of celestial bodies. In this context, the 13th Bakhtin was not just the end of a period in the calendar, but a marker in the ongoing relationship between humanity and the forces of nature that shaped their lives. In this view, the world was seen as a vast, interconnected web, with each part of it influencing the others. The Maya were aware that the health of the land, the balance of the elements, and the well-being of the people were all intertwined. This holistic understanding of life is what made their rituals and ceremonies so essential. Every year, the Maya would perform rituals to honor the gods, ask for guidance, and seek balance in the world. These rituals were not just acts of devotion but were integral to maintaining the cosmic order, ensuring that the cycles of time continued in harmony with the earth. The 13th Bakhtin thus represented not only a spiritual renewal but also an opportunity to reconnect with the forces of nature and reaffirm humanity's role within the larger, cosmic dance. The Maya's deep respect for nature was also reflected in their practices of agriculture. Unlike many other ancient civilizations that viewed nature as something to be conquered or tamed, the Maya saw the earth as a living entity that needed to be nurtured and respected. The agricultural cycle was central to their way of life, and it mirrored the larger cycles of time and the cosmos. Just as the Maya believed that the world went through cycles of birth, growth, death, and rebirth, they saw the agricultural process as a reflection of this same cosmic pattern. The planting and harvesting of crops were not simply economic activities, but sacred rituals that honored the earth and ensured the continued prosperity of the people. The Maya understood that the health of the land was directly tied to their spiritual health, and they believed that maintaining harmony with nature was essential for the success of their civilization. In many ways, the end of the 13th Bakhtin was a time for the Maya to reflect on their relationship with the earth and the natural world. It was an opportunity to assess how well they had aligned themselves with the rhythms of nature and to make adjustments as necessary. Just as they had done for centuries, the Maya used this time to honor the gods, seek guidance from the stars, and ensure that their actions were in line with the cosmic order. The prophecy of 2012, with its focus on spiritual renewal and transformation, was a call to reconnect with the earth, to realign with the forces of nature, and to prepare for the next great cycle of human evolution. This connection between the Maya and the natural world was also reflected in their architecture and urban planning. The cities and temples they built were not random constructions. They were carefully designed to align with the movements of the stars and the natural features of the landscape. The Maya were keenly aware of the relationship between the earth and the sky, and their cities were constructed to reflect this balance. Many of their temples and pyramids were aligned with the solstices and equinoxes, and the layout of their cities mirrored the movements of the celestial bodies. This alignment with the stars was not merely decorative or symbolic. It was a way for the Maya to ensure that their cities were in harmony with the cosmic order. The end of the 13th Baktun was a time to reflect on this alignment, to honor the sacred geometry that governed their cities, and to prepare for the next phase in the spiritual and physical evolution of their civilization. The Maya's relationship with the natural world was not only about maintaining balance and harmony, but also about predicting and understanding the future. The Maya were master astronomers, and they used their advanced knowledge of the stars and planets to chart the cycles of time. The movements of Venus, Mars, and the Sun were all carefully tracked, and the Maya used this information to predict future events, such as eclipses, harvests, and even the rise and fall of rulers. Their ability to read the stars and interpret the patterns of the heavens allowed them to predict the flow of time and to align their actions with the cosmic rhythms. The prophecy surrounding the end of the 13th Baktun can be seen as a culmination of this deep connection between the Maya and the stars. The 13th Baktun was not an isolated event, but the culmination of a long process of spiritual and cosmic alignment. The Maya believed that the end of this cycle would bring about a new phase of human evolution, one that was aligned with the divine forces of the universe. Just as they had carefully charted the stars to guide their actions, the Maya believed that the end of the 13th Baktun would signal a new phase of spiritual growth and transformation. This was not a prophecy of doom, but a call to embrace the next stage in humanity's spiritual journey, to align with the cosmic forces that govern the universe, and to prepare for a new era of peace, balance, and enlightenment. While the Maya's understanding of prophecy was deeply spiritual, it was also rooted in their practical understanding of the world around them. The 13th Baktun was not just about spiritual renewal, but about ensuring the continued prosperity of their civilization. The end of this cycle was a moment to reflect on their achievements, their mistakes, and their relationship with the earth. It was a time to prepare for the next phase of human development, to realign their actions with the cosmic order, and to ensure that the natural world would continue to provide for them. The Maya's ability to predict the future, not just through celestial observations but also through a deep understanding of the natural world, gave them the tools to navigate the cycles of time with wisdom and foresight. This practical knowledge of the world, combined with their spiritual understanding, is what allowed the Maya to create one of the most sophisticated and enduring civilizations of the ancient world. Their ability to harmonize their actions with the natural world, to align their cities and temples with the stars, and to understand the deeper meaning of time, made their culture one of the most advanced in human history. The prophecy of the 13th Baktun was a reflection of this deep understanding, a reminder that time is not just a series of moments, but a living, breathing force that must be respected and aligned with the divine. The Maya's teachings, passed down through their ancient prophecies and spiritual practices, are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. In our modern world, we often forget the sacred rhythms of the earth and the cosmos, losing sight of the interconnectedness of all things. The prophecy surrounding the end of the 13th Baktun is a reminder that we are part of a much larger system, one that operates on cycles of creation, destruction, and rebirth. It calls on us to reconnect with the earth, to honor the forces of nature, and to align ourselves with the cosmic rhythms that govern life. The 13th Baktun, therefore, is not just a moment in the distant past, but a symbol of the ongoing journey of humanity. It invites us to reflect on our relationship with the natural world, to realign our actions with the spiritual forces that shape the cosmos, and to prepare for the next phase of our spiritual evolution. Just as the Maya saw the end of the 13th Baktun as a moment of transition, so too must we see it as an opportunity to embrace the future with wisdom, compassion, and a deep understanding of our place in the cosmic cycle. The Maya understood that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves, And it is this awareness that will guide us as we step into the next phase of our collective spiritual journey. As we continue our exploration into the profound teachings embedded in the Mayan prophecy, it is crucial to consider the role of spiritual leadership within the Mayan society and how it shaped their collective understanding of time, prophecy, and cosmic cycles. The Maya did not rely solely on abstract philosophies or theoretical constructs to guide their actions. Instead, they had a deeply embedded system of leadership that was intertwined with their religious and spiritual beliefs. This system placed great importance on the role of the king or ruler as the intermediary between the gods and the people, a figure who not only governed the material affairs of the kingdom but also served as the spiritual guardian of the people's relationship with the divine forces that controlled the universe. The king's role in understanding and interpreting prophecy was central to maintaining harmony with the cosmic rhythms that governed the Maya world. To fully understand the significance of this, we must step into the shoes of a Mayan ruler. The Maya were keenly aware of the deep interconnectedness between their actions, the celestial movements, and the prosperity of their kingdom. As the Halak-Winnik, the true man, the king was seen as both a political and a spiritual leader, a conduit through which the divine could manifest in the earthly realm. The ruler's responsibility went far beyond the day-to-day governance of his people. He was also tasked with ensuring that his kingdom remained in balance with the larger cosmic forces, that the natural cycles continued without interruption, and that the gods remained favorable to their civilization. The role of the ruler was crucial when it came to interpreting the prophecies associated with the Mayan calendar and aligning them with the welfare of his people. The king was often advised by a council of priests and shamans, spiritual leaders who had an intricate understanding of the stars, planets, and celestial cycles. These priests served as the keepers of sacred knowledge, and they closely monitored the movements of the planets, the positioning of the stars, and the rhythms of nature. Their expertise allowed them to interpret the hidden meanings within the Mayan calendar, a system that tracked the long-term cycles of time, and to provide guidance to the ruler on when to act, when to make offerings, and when to prepare for new spiritual challenges. This understanding of time was not just a matter of abstract spiritual speculation. It had direct consequences for the physical and material world of the Maya. The Mayan ruler was not merely a secular leader. He was also a steward of the spiritual and cosmic health of his people. This dual responsibility, both political and spiritual, meant that the king had to embody wisdom, patience, and divine alignment. He was expected to maintain the balance between the earthly and the divine, ensuring that his decisions were made not just for political gain, but in accordance with the deeper cosmic order. One of the most powerful symbols of this dual role was the Mayan ball game, an ancient ritualistic sport that held profound spiritual significance. It was not simply a game, but a cosmic reenactment of the struggle between the forces of life and death. The ball court, often the focal point of Mayan cities, was considered a symbolic reflection of the world itself, its boundaries representing the balance between the earthly and the spiritual realms. The outcome of the game was believed to affect the fate of the kingdom, influencing not just material wealth but also the divine favor of the gods. For the Mayan ruler, the ball game represented the ongoing battle to maintain cosmic harmony, with every victory or defeat seen as an echo of larger, celestial conflicts. The ruler's role as a spiritual figure also manifested in the rituals and ceremonies that were carried out to mark significant points in the Mayan calendar. At the end of each Baktan, particularly the 13th Baktan, the ruler was expected to lead the people in a grand ritual to honor the gods, ensure cosmic renewal, and prepare for the future. These ceremonies were designed to mark the transition from one cycle to another, with the belief that each new cycle would bring new spiritual possibilities for the kingdom. The ruler's participation in these rituals was crucial because it symbolized the continuous flow of life, death, and rebirth that governed both the human and cosmic realms. The Mayan belief in human agency and the ruler's responsibility to guide his people was based on the idea that individual and collective actions could influence the divine order. The Maya did not see themselves as powerless in the face of fate. Rather, they believed that through ritual, prayer, and the alignment of human will with the cosmic rhythms, they could influence the course of history. The end of the 13th Baktan was a powerful reminder of this agency, an invitation to the king and his people to take control of their spiritual destiny and prepare for the cosmic transformation that was about to take place. The king's role was also tied to prophecy in a very direct sense. As the people's spiritual leader, the ruler was responsible for interpreting the sacred signs and omens that were believed to precede important shifts in the cosmic order. The Maya had an intricate system of divination, involving the reading of sacred texts, the observation of natural events, and the use of sacred fire as a medium for prophecy. These divinatory practices were used to predict the future and provide guidance for the ruler, who would then make decisions based on the information provided by the gods. In the context of the 13th Bacton, the king's role was crucial in ensuring that the prophecy was fulfilled in a way that would lead to spiritual renewal and cosmic transformation, rather than destruction. The Maya understood that the end of a cycle was a moment of both risk and opportunity. The ruler's ability to interpret the signs of the times and lead his people through the transition was seen as a key factor in determining the success or failure of the next phase in their spiritual journey. For the Maya, the prophecy was not a passive prediction, but a call to action, urging the ruler to lead with wisdom and vision, and to guide his people toward a harmonious future. The Maya also had a unique relationship with the cosmos, one that was reflected in their understanding of celestial events and how these events tied into their spiritual practices. The movements of the planets, the phases of the moon, and the appearance of certain constellations were seen as messages from the gods, signaling important shifts in the cosmic order. The end of the 13th Bacton was one such event, a celestial alignment that had deep spiritual significance. For the Maya, this alignment marked a moment of spiritual culmination, as the completion of one cosmic cycle opened the doorway to a new phase of human evolution. The ruler's role in this process was to ensure that his people were prepared for the new cycle and that they could navigate the changes with wisdom and grace. The Maya's belief in the power of ritual and sacrifice also played a crucial role in this process. The Maya understood that the gods required offerings and rituals to maintain balance in the universe. These rituals were seen as a way of repaying the gods for the gifts of life, food, and prosperity. The king's role in overseeing these sacrifices was essential, as it ensured that the divine forces remained in alignment with the human realm. The 13th Bacton represented a moment when the Maya king was called upon to offer a grand sacrifice, one that would mark the completion of one cycle and the beginning of another. This sacrifice, whether material or symbolic, was a necessary act of spiritual renewal that was meant to ensure the prosperity of the kingdom in the coming cycle. The ruler's understanding of prophecy and his role as the spiritual leader of the kingdom were central to the Mayan worldview. He was not just a political figure, but a divinely chosen guide who was entrusted with maintaining harmony between the human and divine realms. The Maya believed that the king's spiritual alignment with the cosmic order could affect the future of his people. This belief in the divine right of rulers and their responsibility to maintain the balance of the universe is what made the 13th Bacton such a critical moment in Mayan prophecy. It was not just a date on a calendar. It was a sacred opportunity for spiritual renewal, transformation, and preparation for the next phase of human evolution. Through this understanding of prophecy, we see that the Maya were not merely waiting for an end but were actively engaged in the ongoing process of cosmic renewal. The king, as the spiritual leader, was called upon to guide his people through this transition, ensuring that they were prepared for the next phase of their spiritual journey. In this way, the prophecy surrounding the 13th Bacton was not just a prediction of what would happen, but a call to action, urging the ruler and the people to embrace their role in the cosmic dance of creation, destruction, and rebirth. The Mayan prophecy, therefore, is a powerful reminder that the future is not fixed, and that through wisdom, ritual, and spiritual alignment, we too can shape the future and bring about a new era of spiritual transformation. As we move further into the depths of the Mayan prophecy surrounding the end of the 13th Bacton, we find ourselves confronting the complex intersection between cultural continuity and spiritual renewal. The Maya were not a civilization that viewed time merely as a linear progression, but rather as a cyclical process of death, renewal, and transformation. This cyclical view of time is integral to understanding not only the Mayan calendar but the very essence of their worldview. For the Maya, every event, no matter how grand or mundane, was part of a larger divine pattern, a pattern that connected the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. Thus, The prophecy surrounding the 13th Bacton was not a prediction of apocalyptic destruction, but a spiritual invitation to humanity to recognize its place in this grand cosmic dance and embrace the opportunities for renewal and transformation. At the core of this understanding of time was the belief that every cycle, from the smallest day to the largest Bacton, was a moment of spiritual potential. The Maya did not view time as something to be feared or fought against. Instead, they saw it as a living, breathing force that could be harnessed and aligned with human will to bring about positive change. The 13th Bacton, which culminated in the year 2012, represented the end of one such cycle. However, it was also viewed as a threshold, a doorway through which humanity could step into a new era of spiritual awakening, greater consciousness, and profound connection with the natural and spiritual forces of the universe. This threshold was not a final, one-time event. It was part of an ongoing process of spiritual evolution, one that continues to unfold with every passing moment, and one that challenges humanity to recognize its potential for transformation. The Mayas' deep belief in the cyclical nature of time was reflected in their religious practices, rituals, and ceremonies. These events were not isolated, but interconnected, with each ritual playing an integral role in the larger cycles of time. The 13th Bacton, as a culmination of a long spiritual journey, was marked by specific ceremonies meant to align the collective spirit of the people with the divine forces that governed the cosmos. These rituals were both personal and collective, with each individual participating in acts of devotion, offering, and reflection to honor the gods and secure blessings for the future. The end of the 13th Bacton was not seen as a time of reckoning or punishment, but as a moment of spiritual renewal, an opportunity to shed the old, embrace the new, and prepare for the next cycle. This idea of spiritual renewal was central to the Mayan prophecy. It was not merely about looking backward or dwelling on past mistakes. It was about transcending the limitations of the past and moving forward into a future that held great spiritual potential. The 13th Bacton was viewed as a closing of one chapter in the cosmic story and the opening of a new, more enlightened chapter. The Maya understood that the past, with all its triumphs and failures, was a part of their collective story, but it was not the final chapter. They were always looking ahead to the next spiritual cycle, to the next opportunity for growth, and to the next phase of their journey as a people and as spiritual beings. The idea of spiritual renewal was also deeply embedded in the Maya's understanding of the relationship between the material and spiritual worlds. The Maya believed that these realms were not separate, but interconnected in a dynamic, interdependent relationship. For them, the physical world was not a mere backdrop for spiritual life, but an active participant in the divine dance of creation. The gods, nature, and the cosmos were not separate from humanity. They were intimately tied to every aspect of the material world. This understanding of the universe as a whole, one in which everything is connected, made the Mayan worldview both holistic and profound. Time, therefore, was not something that simply happened to humans. It was something that humanity participated in, shaping and being shaped by the forces of the cosmos. This participatory view of the universe extended to the very nature of prophecy. For the Maya, prophecy was not about passively waiting for the future to unfold. It was about actively engaging with the cycles of time and taking responsibility for one's role in the cosmic order. Prophecy was not a prediction set in stone. It was a divine invitation to align with the forces of nature, to become aware of the spiritual rhythms that govern the universe, and to act in accordance with those rhythms. The 13th Bacton, then, was not merely a date to be feared or anticipated. It was a call to action, a moment when humanity had the opportunity to reflect on its place in the world, to reassess its relationship with the divine, and to prepare for the coming transformation. The Maya's understanding of human agency was thus a key component of their spiritual worldview. They did not believe that humanity was passive in the face of fate or destiny. Rather, they saw human beings as active participants in the divine plan. By engaging in the rituals and ceremonies prescribed by their priests, the Maya believed they could influence the spiritual forces that govern time and the universe. These actions were seen not as mere acts of devotion, but as powerful interventions that could shape the future. In this sense, the end of the 13th Bacton was not just a time for reflection, but a moment for humanity to take responsibility for its spiritual journey and to actively participate in the unfolding of the next cosmic cycle. The rituals performed at the end of each Bacton, particularly the 13th, were an essential part of this active participation. These rituals involved offerings to the gods, prayers for renewal, and collective actions that align the people with the cosmic forces. The Maya were keenly aware that their actions, both individually and collectively, had spiritual consequences, and so they took great care to perform their rituals with intention and reverence. The rituals were not merely symbolic. They were believed to have a real impact on the spiritual and material world, bringing about blessings and ensuring the continuation of the cosmic order. This focus on spiritual agency and active participation is what makes the Mayan prophecy so compelling and unique. Unlike many other cultural or religious prophecies that focus solely on the passive fate of humanity, the Mayan prophecy calls on humanity to engage actively with the universe and to shape its own destiny. It is not a prediction of doom or destruction, but a call to embrace the potential for spiritual evolution and collective transformation. The 13th Bacton was not the end of the world. It was the end of a spiritual era, an era that was ripe for change and renewal. The Maya were also deeply aware of the power of collective consciousness in shaping the spiritual direction of a society. They believed that the collective consciousness of a people, when aligned with the divine forces of the cosmos, could bring about profound spiritual change. The end of the 13th Bacton was a moment when the collective energy of the people was particularly potent, as it represented the culmination of many years of spiritual and material growth. It was a time when the people, led by their rulers and priests, could come together to manifest their collective intentions for the future. The power of this collective consciousness was not just an abstract concept. It was a deeply spiritual force that could transform the world. As we look back at the year 2012 and the prophecy surrounding the 13th Bacton, it is important to remember that the Maya saw time as an eternal, ongoing process, one in which the past, present, and future are all interconnected. The prophecy was not a singular event, but a reminder of the continuous nature of spiritual evolution. The 13th Bacton was a moment to reflect on the progress humanity had made, to acknowledge the work that still needed to be done, and to prepare for the future. It was a turning point, an opportunity for humanity to come together and align itself with the cosmic forces that govern the universe. The Maya believed that the universe was an evolving system, one in which each new cycle brought the potential for greater wisdom, understanding, and spiritual growth. The 13th Bacton was not an end but a new beginning, a chance for humanity to step into a new era of enlightenment, harmony, and cosmic alignment. For the Maya, this was the ultimate message of their prophecy. That time is not something to fear, but something to embrace. The cycles of time are not predestined. They are a reflection of the choices we make, the actions we take, and the intentions we set. The end of the 13th Bacton was not a moment of doom, but a powerful invitation to evolve and transform. Through the Maya's eyes, humanity's role is not just to survive, but to grow, to renew, and to ascend into the next phase of cosmic existence. As we continue to unravel the mysteries surrounding the end of the 13th Bacton, it is essential to examine the broader context in which the Maya lived, thrived, and understood their world. The end of this cycle, which coincided with the year 2012 in our Gregorian calendar, represents more than a point of closure for the Maya. It is a lens through which we can gain a deeper understanding of their spiritual, cultural, and intellectual achievements. The prophecy tied to the 13th Bacton is not just a cryptic message about the future. It is an invitation to engage with the past, present, and future in a way that transcends linear time. To truly comprehend the significance of this prophecy, we must first appreciate the complexities of Mayan civilization, particularly their advanced understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and metaphysics. The Mayan calendar systems were among the most sophisticated timekeeping systems ever devised by any civilization. At the heart of the system was the long count calendar, which tracked the passage of time over extended periods and was central to the prophecy of the 13th Bacton. The long count was designed to measure the time since the creation date, which the Maya believed marked the beginning of the current era. This calendar, along with the Tzolk'in, 260-day cycle, and the Hab, 365-day solar cycle, created a complex and multifaceted system for understanding and predicting the cycles of time. The 13th Bacton, a period of approximately 5,125 years, marked the completion of one of the longest cycles in this system. However, the end of the 13th Bacton was not viewed as the end of the world, but rather as a moment of spiritual culmination, a time for humanity to reflect on the spiritual and physical journey that had been undertaken throughout the cycle. It was a chance for renewal, purification, and spiritual rebirth, rather than a signal of impending doom. The Maya believed that the cosmos was a living entity, always in motion, and that time itself was a reflection of the divine order. This view of time was holistic. It encompassed not just the physical world, but also the spiritual and metaphysical dimensions of existence. The completion of the 13th Bacton was thus an invitation for humanity to realign itself with the cosmic forces and prepare for the challenges and transformations that lay ahead. The Maya's perception of the cosmos was intricately connected to their understanding of balance. The world, according to the Maya, was a harmonious system where every element, whether celestial, earthly, or spiritual, played a vital role. This balance was not something that happened automatically, but something that had to be carefully maintained. The Maya understood the delicate interdependence of all things, and their rituals and ceremonies were designed to keep this balance intact. At the heart of their worldview was the belief that cosmic cycles governed not just the stars and the planets, but also the lives of individuals, families, and entire communities. This idea of balance extended beyond the physical realm. It was a spiritual and moral principle that guided their actions. At the end of the 13th Bacton, the Maya believed that there was a cosmic reset of sorts, a purification of the spiritual energies that had accumulated over the course of the cycle. This spiritual cleansing was not only for the collective well-being of society, but for the individual as well. The Maya saw each person as a microcosm of the universe. Just as the world had its cycles of birth, death, and renewal, so too did the individual. To maintain harmony with the universe, individuals had to undergo their own processes of renewal, often through rituals of purification, prayer, and sacrifice. The end of the 13th Bacton was thus a time when both the individual and the collective had the opportunity to shed old spiritual baggage, to realign their actions with the cosmic order, and to prepare for the next phase of human evolution. The Maya's attention to spiritual purification and the maintenance of balance can also be seen in their social and political structures. As mentioned earlier, the ruler or Halak was not merely a political leader but also a spiritual intermediary between the people and the gods. The king's role was to ensure that the kingdom remained in alignment with the cosmic forces, and this often involved leading his people through complex rituals and ceremonies designed to purify and renew the community. The king's connection to the divine was a central part of his authority, and his ability to maintain cosmic balance was believed to directly affect the prosperity and stability of his reign. At the end of the 13th Bacton, the king's responsibility to guide the people through spiritual renewal was especially significant. This was a time when the ruler's spiritual vision would be tested, and his ability to lead the people into the next phase of the cosmic cycle would determine the future of the kingdom. The sacred role of the king and the intertwined nature of political and spiritual leadership can be traced to the Maya's deep belief in divine kingship. The king was seen as a living god, a figure who had both earthly and spiritual power. This belief in divine kingship meant that the ruler was not just a man but a symbol of the cosmic order, a link between the people and the divine. The end of the 13th Bacton was a time when the king was expected to reaffirm his divine mandate, renew his commitment to the gods, and prepare his people for the challenges and opportunities that the next cycle would bring. The ruler's role in this process was crucial, as his spiritual alignment was believed to influence the prosperity and fate of the entire kingdom. It is important to note that the end of the 13th Bacton was not only a time for personal and spiritual renewal, but also a moment for collective reflection. The Maya saw themselves as part of a larger, interconnected community, not just in the physical realm, but across the cosmos. The prophecy of 2012 was not just an individual call to action, it was a global spiritual awakening. The end of the 13th Bacton was a time when the Maya believed that humanity as a whole needed to come together to realign itself with the divine forces and to prepare for a new phase of spiritual and material development. This collective transformation, according to the prophecy, would require all of humanity to shed old patterns of greed, destruction, and discord, and to embrace a new era of peace, harmony, and spiritual enlightenment. This global vision of the prophecy is especially relevant in the context of today's world, where we face a myriad of global challenges: political unrest, environmental degradation, and social fragmentation. The Maya's call for collective spiritual renewal offers us an opportunity to reimagine our relationship with the earth, each other, and the cosmos. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was not merely a date on a calendar. It was a moment in time that served as a mirror for the world's collective spiritual crisis. The prophecy invites us to reflect on the state of the world, to recognize our role in the cosmic order, and to take responsibility for the transformation that is needed. It is a call for humanity to move beyond its fragmented, divisive state and to embrace a new paradigm of unity, cooperation, and spiritual reawakening. In this sense, the Mayan prophecy offers a path forward, not just for individuals but for humanity as a whole. The 13th Bakhtin was a time for introspection and renewal, a time for each person and community to reflect on their role in the cosmic dance. As the Maya believed, each cycle of time is an opportunity for spiritual growth and transformation. The end of the 13th Bakhtin is not a final end but a beginning, a starting point for a new era of human consciousness and spiritual evolution. By embracing the teachings of the Maya, we can learn to navigate the challenges of our time with wisdom, compassion, and a renewed connection to the divine forces that guide us. The prophecy surrounding the 13th Bakhtin reminds us that we are not alone in this journey, that we are part of something far greater than ourselves, and that by aligning with the cosmic rhythms, we can help bring about the transformation the world desperately needs. The end of the 13th Bakhtin was not only a cosmic moment but also a reflection of the spiritual and moral crossroads that humanity faces. The Maya believed that the shift in cycles was an opportunity for spiritual renewal, not just for their civilization but for the entire world. This renewal was seen as a collective awakening, a time to heal past wounds and recalibrate humanity's relationship with nature, the divine, and each other. It wasn't merely about an astronomical event. It was about awakening the inner world of individuals and society. The Maya's intricate understanding of cycles, from the grand cosmic movements to personal life stages, encouraged a philosophy where every moment was an opportunity for growth and alignment with the greater forces at play. In modern times, the prophecy surrounding the 13th Bakhtin serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of life. The Maya knew that the spiritual and material realms were inseparable, and that the way humanity treated the earth was a direct reflection of its spiritual health. Today, as we face global crises such as climate change and conflict, the message from the ancient Maya remains timeless. Humanity's future depends on our ability to reconnect with the earth and each other in harmony with the natural cycles that govern existence. As the Maya saw it, the end of the 13th Bakhtin was not a dramatic moment of destruction, but a profound spiritual opportunity. Their deep understanding of the cycles of time shaped their perspective that humanity's relationship with the cosmos could shift at any given moment. The prophecy was not only a reflection on the past but a vision for the future. It spoke to the idea that humanity, by understanding and aligning with the natural and spiritual rhythms of the world, could shape its destiny, avoid the mistakes of the past, and enter a new era of balance and harmony. In this light, the 13th Bakhtin prophecy holds lessons that are as relevant today as they were in the Maya world. With the accelerating crises we face, from climate change to geopolitical instability, there is an urgent need for spiritual awakening, a collective realization that we must return to our roots, reconnect with the earth, and rebuild our societies on principles of unity, respect, and shared purpose. The Mayan prophecy calls us to recognize the interconnectedness of all beings and to embrace our collective responsibility in shaping the future. What we choose to do today, just as the Maya believed, will echo through time and influence the spiritual trajectory of the world. The spiritual awakening tied to the 13th Bakhtin prophecy carries profound implications for the way we view time, existence, and our relationship to the cosmos. As the Maya believed, each cycle, each Bakhtin, is not merely a passage of time but a spiritual opportunity, a moment for humanity to align with the universal rhythms. The end of this cycle, far from signifying an apocalypse, was a threshold for transformation. The prophecy invites us to transcend the material preoccupations of modern life and return to a deeper connection with the spiritual and natural world. In the face of today's challenges, political, environmental, and social, the 13th Bactan prophecy encourages us to reimagine our future. It calls for personal and collective renewal, asking us to heal and reconnect with the deeper, more harmonious forces that guide the universe. In essence, it is a plea for humanity to move beyond destructive patterns, embracing a new era of balance, compassion, and spiritual awakening. The prophecy, timeless in its relevance, speaks not just to the Maya but to all of us, urging reflection and action as we step into a new cosmic chapter. As the 13th Bactan prophecy challenges humanity to evolve spiritually, it becomes crucial to consider how the Mayan worldview influences our understanding of time and existence in the modern world. The Maya understood that time was not merely a progression of moments, but a dynamic and cyclical force intertwined with the cosmic order. The end of the 13th Bactan, therefore, was not an isolated event but a cosmic turning point, an invitation for humanity to reevaluate its spiritual path and global consciousness. In the context of today's world, the message of the prophecy holds profound significance. With our civilization facing ecological degradation, political fragmentation, and a crisis of collective spiritual connection, the Maya's call for spiritual renewal resonates deeply. They remind us that our individual actions contribute to the collective cosmic cycle. The 13th Bactan prophecy is not simply about the end of one cycle, but a call to embrace new patterns of global unity, ecological awareness, and spiritual enlightenment. The Mayan message is clear. The opportunity for a fresh start and spiritual realignment is always available, not only at the end of cycles but in the choices we make every day. It is a call to reflection, to recognize our responsibility in shaping the future and to restore balance between the material and spiritual realms. As we conclude our exploration of the Mayan prophecy and the cosmic cycles it represents, we are left with a profound question. How do we carry this wisdom forward into the future? The 13th Bactan prophecy is not just a relic of the past but a call to action, an invitation to awaken to a higher consciousness that transcends time and place. It challenges us to reflect on the interconnectedness of all life and the spiritual potential that lies within each of us. The prophecy reminds us that time, in its most profound sense, is not simply a linear progression but a living force that is continuously shaping our reality. Now, more than ever, as we face unprecedented challenges on a global scale, the lessons of the Maya ring true. Spiritual evolution, balance, and collective consciousness are not abstract concepts but practical imperatives that can guide us through the tumultuous waters of the modern age. The end of the 13th Bactan was not an end, but rather a moment of transition, one that offers us the chance to realign with the divine rhythms of the universe, to embrace our shared human destiny, and to create a future that reflects our highest spiritual ideals. The choice is now ours to make. As we reach the final moments of exploring the Mayan prophecy and the 13th Bactan, we are left with a critical question. What will we do with this knowledge? The prophecy, in its deepest sense, asks us to awaken to our spiritual responsibility. It is not simply a historical curiosity or an ancient mystery, but a living challenge for humanity to align itself with the cosmic forces that govern time and existence. The end of the 13th Bactan marks a new chapter, not of an end, but of an infinite beginning where humanity can choose to evolve, heal, and unite for a better future.